Less lag so far. That's good. It's still not looking great on my end, though. It is not looking great on my end. It might just not be the day. Feels like the internet is hating me right now. Getting bullied. Stream's back. Yeah, I hope so. Well, it's not laggy as shit on my end, right? Because I can't really see it. But I'm looking at like the streaming data basically. So like OBS basically gives you like a warning if you're not sending enough data. And it says that like currently I have like 2000 drop frames, which is not great. But I have not had drop frames recently, so that's pretty good. But we'll see if it keeps going on. Switch over. Yeah, so sorry about that. Seems far so fine. Seems far so fine. Yep, okay. Here's me reading it backwards. Yeah, keep me in the loop. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully that was just like the beginning of it. As I say it, we're going downhill again. Shit. If not, we might have to do one in Discord or something. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't expect it to be massively different, but... Getting a few buffers, but it's fine. Yeah, I have no clue what is happening. Freaking internet, dude. Okay. Well, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. Nah, it's not a webcam thing. It's just like an internet thing. But like, it doesn't really matter, right? Because, I mean, you're sending the same amount of data, basically, whether you have a webcam on or not. The webcam would be a concern if it's like a my PC issue, but it's not. It's just like an internet issue. Yeah, we'll see where we go. So yeah, where was I? So we're doing a bunch of improvements on the dashboard. We're getting all the stuff ready for the academy. We're ramping up the amount of people that we're working with for the lessons as well. So yeah, it's been really good, really exciting. I'm honestly really happy with the way that the dashboard is already looking and the way that like it sets us up for the future. I was saying this during the team meeting yesterday that we had, that it feels like we're going into like Beyond Extent like 2.0. Like we've finally found our groove, which is like the workshops, the academy, and then team challenges, and we're just gonna double down on all that stuff, and then we're gonna make that the best as we can. But yeah, I'm honestly freaking excited to see where we go in the future. Yeah, in the next couple of months is gonna be really it's gonna be stressful. It's gonna be stressful for myself personally because we're getting to the end of my contract. We potentially have to move. We'll see how all of that is gonna be affecting it, but we'll make it through. We'll manage it. Bear is asking, are you gonna create courses for the academy or is this for mentorships? No, so my goal with that is that it is the academy is basically split in two tiers. So a self-learner that can basically go in and we provide like tracks. So basically the way that I have it now, right? So this might change, but the way that we have it now is that we have roadmaps, right? So what I mean with a roadmap is that let's say you want to learn all about like the core skills that you need to make a prop. We provide you a roadmap with like, oh, these are the lessons that we want you to take, and then after that, you should have a good understanding of what that means. And then once you did that core roadmap, then you go to the next roadmap, which might be, I don't know, intro to environment art or environment art specialization, and then we provide another roadmap that is for that. And then the second tier, so that is the self-learner tier, right? So that's for people coming in and they don't really feel the need to have a mentor or anyone else helping them. They can just go by themselves and learn a bunch of stuff by themselves. The second tier would be a guided track, right? So you still have access to all the workshops and all the resources and the academy as well. But then we would have a person that is guiding you through the whole thing and also making an environment together with you using the academy stuff as like a guidance point. That's currently the way that we're seeing it. And that is currently what we're fully diving into. The hope with that is that what we can offer is very in-depth niche content compared to what other online universities are doing, right? Because they try to capture a wider segment of the market, where I'm honestly purely interested in environment art and going as deep as we can into like the nitty-gritty and building content around that. That is what I'm interested in. So yeah, it would be technically both, like you're saying, but we're gonna do it in a different way. Vera saying, been checking out some Halo art recently. The Covenant style is so sick. Love all the rounded shapes and the curvature they got going on. Yeah, I never really played Halo. I never really was too much into Halo until like a couple of years ago when um I kind of had to look into it. Which is yeah, I find that the Forerunner architecture has like a lot of interesting stuff going on. I like the lore behind it, right? And then you have like the Halo ring and the Forerunner structure and like the way that it integrates within like the terrain and the way that it shapes like the landscape. That stuff, yeah, that's where it got really interesting for me. But I feel like I have only barely scratched the surface on what it is because I was purely focused on like the Forerunner architecture. But yeah. Maybe it's the rainy weather today. It was freaking raining hard outside. So yeah, that might be it, Zoe. Zoe's also asking, will there be a team challenge soon? Yes. Oh, maybe that's what we landed on last. We had a team meeting yesterday. We discussed what's coming up in the future, and team challenges are coming up in the future, right? So we plan to do one next month. So next month will be the opening, signups, and all that kind of stuff, and potentially like the first weeks we still have to finalize the actual date. But yeah, we will have a team challenge soon. I bet that we're gonna have an announcement in the coming weeks, and then we'll get everything set up. We also are gonna ramp up from our side as well. So we're gonna be reaching out to people. We're gonna be looking for collaborators. Like, yeah. So it's all ramping up next week probably. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm also excited that so many people are excited about it. Yeah, we have some interesting plans for it. Like we want to every team challenge we talk about like, okay, what do we want to add new, right? We have some ideas that we want to add. It's not gonna necessarily affect it's not going to necessarily affect the way that we run the team challenges or the way that the sequencing works or anything like that. It is more like what we can offer the people that participate or win, right? So we're looking at it from that perspective, and the rest is just going to be tweaks. But I'm really excited to show you some more stuff that we've been cooking up, because Sunny has some really good ideas for that as well. Let me see. Will it be a problem if I live in a time zone very far away from Europe? I'd like to join calls real time as much as possible. Oh, are you talking about the academy stuff? That is a good question. Honestly, that is so niche that we haven't really thought about that yet. So I don't know yet. What we do want to do is we want to go like a little bit more international, right? Because for now, the community at large has been more UK, Europe focused. So it would be nice that we can like expand a little bit as well. It just depends on the demand, right? That's what it comes down to. If we see that there's a lot of people, that there's a lot of demand in um, different parts of the world, then we will see how we can accommodate for that. The same happened with the team challenges as well, where we see that it's becoming more diversified in terms of like where people are from. So we had to change up the way that we actually build the teams as well. So in the last challenge, what we did before that is we looked at people's time zones, and then we sort of tried to match them. But in the new one, what we did, or in the last one, what we did is we actually had categories by continent, and then we matched people by continent and then per time zone. So we already had a bigger sort of category that we could fit people in. So I think that worked really well because we had some issues with that before. A long way of saying we'll probably see what the demand for that is, and then we'll see what we need to do against it. Super rainy here in London today. It is so nice though. I do like a good bit of rain. Let Sunny cook. Yes. Yeah, Sunny has been so focused on the academy stuff. She's been kicking ass over there. Like producing like all the lessons, making some really good video content for all of you. It's gonna be cool to see. Sunny's a legend. Yeah. She is. Yeah, same for Evelyn as well. Like the consistency that Evelyn has brought to the team in terms of the workshops has been such a relief. And honestly, like it was such a burden before, right? Because I was doing it by myself and blah 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 blah. And now it's so amazing to have Evelyn on board. And same with Sunny, right? Like both of them are really kicking ass. Hello 3D Ben. Hello Alex. How are you both doing? Squad grows strong. Let's go. Question, how can you learn 3D art at home and live with a cat? I've got no idea. I have a dog, and he's like super tame and doesn't jump up on any table, so I think I'm good. But yeah, what else has been happening? Honestly, not too much. I've honestly been spending the majority of my time just grinding on the website. It's just been, even I had like a week off last week. I spent that entire week working on the website. This week I'm getting back into work, and it's literally just work, coming home and do more stuff. So yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get all this stuff cracking. Like the deadline is at the end of the year, right? So we're getting closer and closer to it. So yeah. Hopefully I'm not the only one in UTC plus 8. It's so hard gathering many people in my area. I think we had a couple of teams, if we're still talking about the team challenges, right? We had a couple of teams that were in that time zone. Like UTC plus 8, UTC plus 10, UTC minus 10. We had people from all over the place, basically. The way that we did it is we had some like Central European. Well, it's not European. It basically covers Africa and all that kind of stuff as well because they're in the same time zone. Um, we had, yeah, I guess you could call it like the American time zone, the Asian time zone, and then you have like the European time zone, right? But it basically covered the whole slice of the Earth. So we had like a couple of people from like the Asian continents as well, which is really cool. I think that was also the first time, so I was really excited to see that too. Hmm. But what is everyone else up to though? Anyone did anything exciting this week? Let me know what you did or what you're working on. Ah. And let's see. The show must go on. Yes, it must, Guillaume. It definitely must. Does the academy cover resume advice or job searching strategies or just portfolio oriented? No, so that is a thing that was actually a little bit underappreciated from the content that I've already made. We already had like a full catalog of content that was more, I called it like the getting into games articles, right? So I basically wrote like 10 to 15 articles that talked about how to write a CV, how to write emails, how to present your portfolio, all that kind of stuff. And those are going to be basically wrapped into the academy now. So we basically want to cover the whole spectrum from and this is really ambitious, but we want to cover the whole spectrum from the beginning until getting all the technical skills and then giving you like all the resources to then also make a good CV, a good portfolio, how to go through interviews and all that kind of stuff too. So we're thinking about covering the whole spectrum. But yeah, that is the idea. Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. Maybe this is a good time to also introduce like why I'm here today, right? So we're gonna be diving into some community feedback. So people can tag me on our Discord, and then we'll go into some feedback later on. But if you are new to this place, feel free to ask any questions about game development, about environment art. I've been doing this for 10 years, almost 10 years professionally. So if you want to ask me anything, feel free to do so. Because we're just chatting away for a little bit in the beginning. Sia went to Boston this weekend. That's awesome. What is like a touristy place in Boston? What is Boston known for? Fuck, this is such a this is such a European question. It's like I have no clue. I'll be going to a spa for 2 days with my boyfriend tomorrow. Oh, 2 days? Fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. I was never really into spas or relaxing or whatever. It sounds so stupid. And then we went to Budapest like a couple of years ago, and we went to one of the thermal baths. And oh my god, it was so good. So, oh, that sounds so good, Lily. Zoe's not doing much. My contract ended last week, so I'm a bit lost right now. Oh, sorry to hear that, Zoe. Are you already applying, interviewing other places as well, or? I assumed as much, Sia. Like the Boston Tea Party, yeah, I know that, but that's about it, you know? Threw tea off a boat, really became an American. That sounds awesome, though. You know, sometimes you just gotta indulge, you know? For example, I grew up in Antwerp, right? And Antwerp has this beautiful cathedral. And I was always like, yeah, looks cool, but I'm never gonna go in it, you know? And now that I live somewhere else, it's like, oh, I kind of want to go to the cathedral. You know? Do like all the stereotypical touristy stuff. Yeah. I'm trying to update my portfolio because all my work is currently under NDA, so I'm struggling to apply. Okay, Zoe, this is a very common thing. Depending on where you host your content, what you could potentially look into is having the company sign an NDA or something like that, and then share your work through a password protected website. That could be an option. It requires a little bit of setup, but that could be a way to still show like all the NDA stuff that has value to show off, um, to get like the next job, right? Because this is very typical for artists to be in this position, right? Cancel projects, getting let go, all that kind of stuff. You're gonna end up in this position, so that might be a way to get around it. Should environment artists learn Gaia? What kind of position would require it? So there are specific positions that go into terrain sculpting. So for example, so the example would be that sometimes you have like a position that is literally just called a terrain artist, right? And they might be into like sculpting the terrain or making the base terrain or something like that. It is a very niche position. So if you just wanted to do like general environment art, I wouldn't learn Gaia. It is good to kind of have like an introduction to it, right? So kind of knowing how you can make terrain if you ever needed to. But I feel like in terms of like priorities in what you need to learn on your portfolio, it's like pretty down the list, honestly. And the way that I want to frame that is the reason why it's down that list is just because it is so niche. And also if you think about games, right? You're not going to be spending all of your time creating terrain like the entirety of the game, right? Usually what happens is you generate a base terrain that is like representative of like the stuff that you need. Maybe you do a couple of iterations, but then at a certain point you kind of have to lock it in, and then you just do like sculpting inside of Unreal Engine, or you add like, I don't know, rocks and all that kind of stuff to it to kind of get like the final quality, right? But that means that also like there's no like actual full-time position for a terrain artist that's going to be doing terrain like all the time. So usually what happens is they kind of throw it into like a geology position where it's your part to take care of the terrain, but then also rocks and cliffs and all that kind of stuff too. Or maybe some Houdini stuff. Yeah. It's kind of one of those awkward places where it's like, no, we can't really fill a slot to have like a full-time position. So we're gonna just mash it in somewhere. Gotta be a tourist in your own city. Hell yeah. Zoe saying, I asked, but both of the studios I have worked for don't allow it. It sucks. Okay. So don't take this as advice. Right? But sometimes you just don't ask. Because of course the company is going to be like, oh no, you can't show that. They're always going to say that, right? It makes sense. So I honestly feel, and okay, let's put some context here, right? Because this is very sensitive. I've personally never had to do that. So take that with a grain of salt coming from my side, right? Because I've only heard from the second-hand accounts. But from the people that I kind of know that do it, like I also don't think that they ask for permission necessarily, you know, because they know the answer to that question. Again, not that I'm advocating for just like, just fuck it, like I'm just gonna share it with everyone. Like, don't do that. Be like really, really, really careful. Get the other company to sign an NDA or something like that. But there's one problem though. Couldn't even get my renders. Well, yeah, then you're fucked. You know. Dang it. Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is also like pretty common that happens, right? Because sometimes you leave before the game ships and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to wait and then talk to your friends when the game shipped to kind of get like some up-to-date renders and get them approved and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's a completely different beast when you don't have them and the game is not out yet. I think, yeah, it's not a great position to be in. Really try to spruce up that CV though. Like really talk about the stuff that you've done and like the responsibilities that you had, how they correlated to Yeah, how they correlated to like the end result, right? Tim from BE said I could do it. Dang it, Swan. No. Banned. um I see. Don't forget to share the password, the portfolio password all the time in job applications. So that must be a very common. Oh, wait, Abdu. I see. Sorry, I'm just reading through this, not paying attention. Dang it. I see. Don't forget to share the portfolio password. Oh, interesting. I've never seen that. That is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that on application. Huh. I mean, I'm not surprised though, because I do know that it's common. But yeah, I've never seen that on an application. Hey Toa, how's it going? It's going good. It's going good. How are you doing? Even some AAA games have shitty terrain, so you're fine. I mean, yeah, but you want to make beautiful terrain. No, that should be the ambition. You don't want to make shitty stuff, you know? Also, sometimes, oh, freaking restrictions in games, you know? Mm-hmm. Can I get a working visa from a company, being an immigrant living in the US, if they want to hire me? Can I get a working visa from a company being an immigrant living in the US if they want to hire me? So I'm not from the US myself, so I feel I don't know the specifics for living in the US, right? If you are talking about getting a visa to go outside of the US, it's highly unlikely. The reason being is because they're really pulling up like how much they're asking for skilled worker visas, right? So for example, the UK has pulled up their skilled worker visa requirements from 24,000 to 38,000, which means that they basically raise it up so where it becomes like unfeasible for a junior to get hired overseas, right? Because a junior in the UK is gonna, I don't know, earn on average like, let's say 28 to 30K, right? And maybe I'm overestimating. Let's say 28 on average. So that means that they're 10K short for even getting hired for a skilled worker visa, right? So that means what that means is that now in the UK, like the focus is going to be on local talent, which is potentially what they want, right? Because they were hiring from all over the place because there's a lot of game schools here, but they don't necessarily push out the best quality on average compared to some other places. So yeah, now the government is kind of helping that system by no, you can only hire from like internally, right? And I guess the same thing happens with Europe as well, but Europe is a little bit more diversified in terms of they. I think it's going to be per country, right? Some countries it's going to be twice the amount of minimum wage or something like that I've seen. So you kind of have to look at that for yourself and see which country you want to land in and then see what the requirements are for a skilled worker visa. Because it's not just about being good enough. It's literally just about the pay, right? Like that's the main thing that's going to be the burden here. I've heard it's very common, but I think it's because I work in VFX, so they're extra careful about it. Doesn't help me very much though. Yeah. Hello, Adam. Is it that impossible to get a remote job? Yeah, honestly, I mean, remote jobs have always been like really, really difficult to get. Like we were quote unquote lucky during COVID, right? Because companies had to, but I don't think that's like the natural ideal state for most companies. So yeah, getting a remote job feels like it's very, very unlikely. I am specifically talking about AAA though. So I was asking because I'm new here and I thought you were from the US. No, 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 sorry. I'm from Belgium, but I'm living in the UK now. isn't remote working away from home? No, so there's like three different separations, right? So you work in office, you work hybrid, or you work remote. And remote has a lot of stipulations. So for example, if like you can work remote, but that remote position is most of the time only available for the country that the company is in, right? So you can work for a UK company on a remote basis, but you have to live in the UK, right? It is even less likely that you're going to get a full remote position working for another country than you're currently in. I think it's more likely then that you are going to be working on like a freelance basis or as a B2B, like a business to business, right? Where you set up your own company, you work for that main company, but it's a business transaction between the two, right? Something like that. Andrea saying, I've had a hard time looking for a remote job, and on top of that, it's almost all senior positions. Yeah, honestly, and even for senior positions, I'm not really seeing that much remote stuff unless it is for the companies that have a lot of money, right? So it's like AI related stuff. Um, because most of the AAA companies, they're not they're not looking for remote jobs. Like all of them are going to be hybrid at least, or just in house. Because we're seeing more and more people move to in house. 7,000 USD for an employer to apply for an A1B visa for the US for you, and it's not guaranteed. Yeah, I heard like the whole like visa lottery and all that kind of stuff in the US is kind of crazy. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like 7,000 USD for like an employee that is really really skilled is like still like really cheap, right? It's just the whole lottery aspect of it that is just fucking. What are the best places to share your portfolio? These days it's probably gonna be. Sorry, Toa was asking the best places to share your portfolio. These days is probably gonna be Discord servers. If you want to share your work, like any sort of social media, pick the one that you like the most, stick with it, and be very active. Share your portfolio there. Participate in things like Portfolio Day, right? Like every 3 months, I think they have a Portfolio Day on multiple platforms. But yeah, it's probably gonna be Discord communities. But the thing there is that you have to think about not just sharing your portfolio because no one's going to click on it, right? It's like, what are you trying to get back from the people um that you share your portfolio with, right? So I'll give you another example. So a best way to get seen is where you provide some sort of entertainment, you provide some sort of value, or you do something like that, right? So an effective way of getting more traffic to your portfolio would be that you share a really interesting project with a bunch of cool breakdowns, because then it's like, oh, people can actually learn from this, right? Or you do like myself, you make like a bunch of resources on like how do you make glass in Unreal, and that gives you like some traction, right? If you want to be, I would say, more effective, I think the you're either going to stand out with doing two things, like make really really exceptional art, which is really difficult because most of the art that we have to make, it is for production quality, right? So it's kind of designed to not really stand out from the rest, right? Because we are commercial artists. um so that is sort of really tricky to do. So that's why I always find it interesting. You then start like sharing resources that can help other people, and that gets you traction as well. Just some tips there as well. Mm-mm-mm. But yeah, the remote job situation. I mean, I think a lot of people that I talk to in my circles, right? So we're talking seniors, leads, like high mids, all those kind of people. Um, they are all interested in remote. Like a lot of them at least, right? There's some people that really, really love working in a company, but most of them, they're kind of looking like, hey, I want to get out of the big city. I kind of want to like get a house, like start settling down, and then working remote is going to be really interesting for them, right? Um, would you, Zeno is asking, would you say that London is a lucky spot to find a job? I don't think so. So, oh, I wish I saved the link. There was a link that I was looking at like a couple of weeks ago where it said the spot in the UK that had the most amount of game jobs, but then compare that to the most amount of game devs that are living there looking for a job, and then like basically average a number between the two. And because London is such a massive hub for games, that also means that a lot of people move to London to get into games, right? Which means that puts a lot of pressure on the people that are looking. I think London came out as like, yeah, it had the most job openings, or like the most job opportunity, let's say. But if you then contrast that to the amount of people that are looking for a job within London, then it becomes a different ballgame, right? But then maybe another place, I don't have the list anymore. It would have been good. But I think something like Liverpool or something like that has a disproportional amount of like studios compared to the amount of people that live there. So you kind of have to look for those places if you want to get lucky, you know? But obviously that depends on where you live. Oh, I live in Canada and most of the people are in Montreal. It will be a nightmare to switch to a city that speaks French. Culture change is difficult. I know, man. I know. It's yeah, Canada is, the big hubs are like Montreal, Toronto, and Quebec, right? I mean, I get this from like working within Ubisoft, right? So we work with those companies. But yeah, having to switch to like Quebecois. Oh my god. Like going French. Like, yeah. No thanks. I had a friend of mine that lived in Quebec for a while. He absolutely loved it, but he talked about the same thing. The culture switch is like pretty difficult. Do you know any environment artists that specialize in making hard surface sci-fi environments? Oh yeah, there's a ton of them. I mean, some people that let me think, because it kind of overlaps, right? So a bunch of my friends, like, they work at or have worked at CIG, right? So that's all hard surface sci-fi stuff. So yeah, if you wanna discover people like environment artists that specialize in those kind of things, you kind of have to look for the games that make those things, right? And then yeah, you'll find like a bunch of people there. But you're gonna find like a whole bunch of like really cool designers like Alex Senechal, who I shouted out like a couple of times already. But there's like a bunch of people in that realm that specifically design or like specifically focus on designing cool hard surface stuff. Yoon Kim as well. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool people in that space if you're really interested in it. Let me turn on the French switch. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an interest in it, and I'm supposed to be part French, right? Because Belgium is divided in two. A part of it is Dutch and a part of it is French. So basically we get taught to be bilingual by design. Yeah, no thanks. I'll stay talking in English or Dutch. Also, hello Tala, good to see you here. But yeah. So yeah, Andrea, not had any luck with the remote job situation then, from what I can tell. Tala is saying, I'm a follower for about a year since I decided to get into game art, jobs, and could you explain what I can learn from that? Like networking, career advice, or do I have to buy a mentorship? No, I believe. Whoa, everybody talking French, please. Allez, tout le monde parle en français. Bonjour. Yeah, Lily, I know. I'm secretly really good at Dutch. It's my native language. I honestly, it's really weird. I don't like speaking it in a professional setting, but yeah, I speak Dutch. Speak it fluently. Sorry, we got distracted there, Tala. What can I learn from that? So like networking career advice. I mean that's like pretty broad, right? Let's see, networking career advice. I mean, honestly, in the beginning, I wouldn't say like networking. Networking is that important in the beginning. In the beginning, it's more about oh, I was talking about the bonus and membership. Oh, membership. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of resources on that are like available to you already if you want to learn more about networking or how to write a CV or anything like that. We do have resources on it. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, you can access that with the base membership. Gekoloniseerd. I've actually been looking into 343 and Doom devs lately. It's always been crazy to see their work and level of quality. Oh yeah, so one of the people that I was reaching out to was Felix Leyendecker, because he did a talk at DevCon about the way that they made oh, sorry, Tala. I think we're confusing it. So I'm not talking about the mentorships. I'm talking about the membership. The membership, if you become a member, we already have like resources for that too. Yeah, I do know that the mentorships are full at the moment. Because yeah, been fully working on the academy stuff. So hopefully I can expand some of the mentorship slots in the future, but we'll see. Did you see that giant wall that he made? I don't think so. Doom Eternal? I mean, I saw all the other stuff, right? Like, I'm like, if anyone asks me about the mid-poly workflow and how it works, like, I use his work as an example. I'll share it here again, right? To give him like. So if we go to his art stage, he has like this one post that is just freaking amazing in showcasing like what mid-poly stuff is really good at. So it's this particular piece. I'll show it on the screen as well. Switch it over. That's not the screen. Here we go. Let's move this over. Yeah. This is the example that I always bring up in terms of like, okay, what is mid-poly? Because you can clearly see how it breaks down. Like you have in the first the base shapes, then the details, then the weathering, and then the decals, right? Very clear cut. Just the buildup of all the layers in the scene and how versatile it is, right? Like, so once you have the system working and you have like the tilables and the materials, it just becomes more about like smart UV unwrapping and vertex painting and all that kind of stuff. And I really love it. You can kind of see like how effective it is to like add variation on like small scale to medium scale to large scale as well. Kind of, yeah. Yeah. Just really cool. Like I bring up this post like all the time where it's just like, hey, look, if you want to get into this stuff, like this is how it's built up, right? Yeah. That's really cool. And it just shows like sometimes you don't need to have like really complex like RGB blending and all that kind of stuff. You don't need mask. Like sometimes it's just really effective to just have like a base material, vertex painting, and then just decals, you know? Because it just blends the whole thing together really nicely. Is the detail just plain baked? No, so like all the detail is just like decals, right? So that's the whole purpose here. So we can kind of see. So this is if we do like a freeze frame. Let me see if I can get it. Right? If we do a freeze frame, this is basically the way that it looks without any details, right? So this is just base model. This is all just geometry, right? And then in the second stage, he starts adding those decals on top of it. And those are just normal decals, right? So you can see like the bolts, the insets, like all those little trims, all those like little things that make it feel like, oh, this is an actual panel, this is detailed, like that comes on top of it. And then the third layer is weathering stuff, right? So you can see that there's dirt and grime and all that kind of stuff that is been added on it. Then the last step is just getting all those projected decals on there as well. So like all the little icons and the little emblems and all that kind of stuff is going to be like the last pass that has been done. And just all those layers together, like I can take all of those and repurpose them. Well, apart from like the pure geometry, well, even the geometry, right? I can reuse that geometry for like all the different steps in that process. And I can just make like the corridor next to it and make it fully unique and still use the same workflow. And it's going to be super modular. Those decals are just textured planes. Yeah. Like this step, that's all just like normal stuff. And what is usually done in this workflow is that you have something called parallax occlusion mapping, which basically simulates like an actual depth inside of the material, but it's faked. Isn't supposed to be the weathering imperfections last, the icons and the other stuff? It doesn't matter. Like you can do either or first. I think it might also be a way that he just like broke it down, right? You can do it in whichever order you want. But yeah, I love this stuff. It's just, it is so pleasing that it is the right combination of it's optimized, it is really easy to use, and it is super versatile. Like it is the right combination of those two things, which allows you to make like anything with just like the same set of stuff, you know, like with the same set of decals, with the same set of materials that you have. It is so versatile. Yeah, I love this kind of stuff. It's so good. It's so good. Such level of detail and amount of work. Yeah, but like here's the thing. Like I don't want to undermine I don't want to undermine like the amount of work that went into it, right? Because it is a long, like it is a lot of work. But it also means that, I don't know, it is more flexible and it's less tedious than just having like, oh, I need to bake this in Substance and like, it's super flexible. I love this kind of stuff. Sorry, what makes this workflow more optimized and performant? I think the main reason is because it's modular, right? So I use an atlas of decals and I can reuse that atlas in every level if I wanted to, or in different parts of the level. And that means that I only have to load that atlas into memory once and it's going to be reused the entire time, right? So that is like super optimized, and I can basically make like all the details for any sort of paneling in the entire level just with that one texture, right? So that is the way that it's super optimized and super performant, right? Because you're only pulling it into your memory once and then you can just keep reusing it. The same thing that for example, some bigger open world games do this, where they have a texture per region, or maybe a texture that's always going to be loaded in because they know that it's going to be so common that you can basically just use it for free. Because they are going to have it loaded at all times. So the more that you use the same sort of resources, the more optimized it's going to be. I'm thinking like the final design of the wall panel with the icons should be clean and then weathered in the timeline. Yeah, I mean, you can easily switch those around, right? One thing I have seen sometimes is keeping the model basic, but the materials do the heavy lifting. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what this is, right? It is, yeah, sure. We sacrifice a little bit by adding bevels into the actual geometry, right? So if we switch on over again, I'm gonna keep talking about this for a little bit. So yeah, you have like bevels baked into the geometry. Oh, not baked. I shouldn't say that. Like you have geometry modeled into the bevels modeled into the geometry. So from that side, it's going to be more expensive, but it is actually way cheaper in terms of like the amount of space that it takes up on your hardware, for example. Because an FBX is like kilobytes, you know, where like if you want to load in like a texture, and let's say we want to texture this whole section with a unique texture, you're already going to pull in at least like a 1K texture, right? And then, okay, now I have to do that for like every wall panel that I want to do in this scene. And also I can only use that in a certain amount of ways because I don't have the flexibility, right? Because all of it, all the information is baked into it now. So yeah, that's going to be really restrictive. So this is just like taking modularity to like the next degree and just being like really smart with it. Because also like you can see some stuff like this, right? Where if you make a cut into geometry, you give it like a slightly different color in the base color, and you do that for a couple of modules, you have like a really unique look just by doing that. Apparently ID engine can handle a crazy amount of geo, so it probably isn't even that close. I mean, if you look at the amount of geo that has been currently used in games, like geometry is not the problem, right? If you think about the amount, if you think about like the ridiculous like sizes of games now, that is purely because, well, first of all, cinematics, they're probably taking the biggest space if you have like a cinematic heavy game. But then the rest of it is just textures, right? Because they take up so much space, especially if you want to go for like larger sizes. You can bake a fake bevel. You can, but then you're still storing that data in a texture, which is going to be more expensive than just having like a bevel there, right? Because as soon as we bake anything, what we're doing is we have to store that data in a texture, right? So yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's basically taking like looking at like what baking did for us back in the day, and then seeing like, okay, how can we make this more modular and more useful for larger scope environments without having to bake every module over and over, right? That's why if you go and look for dang it, what is that game called again? What is that game? The Ascent. The Ascent is also like a great example of this, right? Like just they have one texture. Like there's a talk from Tor Frick where he basically talks about like the amount of texture that they use, and they use one texture which is basically a bunch of trims. Well, they use one normal texture, right? They probably use like other textures for other stuff, but like the majority of their environments are just made with like this one texture where they just use like a bunch of normal details. They have a bunch of trims on there, a bunch of reusable pieces, a couple of like really unique pieces that they use in separate cases, and they even have like space left over because they just didn't know what to do with it. And then they make something that looks like this, you know? So that's just like kit bash together, right? Blackman Wukong, so much geo, but so much bloody textures as well. Yeah, that's like the thing that we're running into, right? It's a texture streaming and all that kind of stuff is becoming Looks like it's becoming a bottleneck. Favorite examples of reuse, one texture for the whole game. Well, yeah, but this goes back to what he did like 10 years ago, or like 12 years ago, or something like that. Because if you actually go and look, I'm not going to bring it up now, but there's like a really interesting polycount thread of him experimenting with just like, hey, I want to build like an entire environment that looks really detailed with one texture. And then he decided to use that sort of workflow on the whole game. And it works. There's a TDC talk from them, building the world from the ascent. Very fascinating to watch. Yeah, oh yeah. That's the one that I'm talking about as well. Like, that was really cool. I also loved the way that they used screen space ambient occlusion to drive like wear and tear on their models. Like, that was really, really cool. Yeah, 512 by 512 environment. Yeah, that stuff was cool. Let me see. Did we miss some things in the... Let me see. Let me get up to date here. So it's also that ID Tech engine is awesome at rendering detail. Yeah, it is. You got some really smart people working there, you know? Would you say such technique is outdated for today's standard? Because it's super cool, but it lacks geometry? Oh no, like you can easily add more geometry, right? Because geometry is cheap. And the reason it's also you have to take into account that the game that you're designing it for, right? In something like Doom, you don't want to add a lot of geometry because the whole purpose of the environment is that it preserves readability, because the gameplay always comes first, right? You can make something that looks like freaking kick-ass, but if you can't even see the enemy because there's so much stuff happening, then the purpose is lost, right? The art that we make is always in service of the gameplay, right? Or like it should be in harmony at least. But yeah, adding geometry is going to be like the easiest thing to do. Case. You said that Felix recently did a talk. Do you know where you can find it? You probably have to subscribe for DevCom, I guess. I don't know if you still can, but he did that at DevCom. So yeah, that would be the way to look at it. So in Doom Eternal, the people in the studio, they all worked with decals in every scene like that? Or do they just have that guy using decals in his own scene? No, I think a lot of people use the same sort of workflow, right? Because making something like that at scale with all the iterations that you do in game dev, like it takes a lot of time. So they probably had like, yeah, they probably had a decent sized like team that just used the shared resources, right? So what probably happens is they had a couple of people working on textures, or maybe one person working on the textures, and then the majority of the team is probably going to be actually building the content for the levels, right? And then specifically in those areas, you might have a split between the people that are really good at hard surface and then the people that build rocks, right? I mean, there's probably going to be more disciplines, but that seems to be the split from the screenshots that we just looked at. I've heard that the biggest problems in terms of optimization are ray tracing, dynamic lighting, shaded complexity, the physics, etc. Don't know if this is right though. It really depends on the game, right? I feel like you can put it in a lot of brackets. I mean, ray tracing is still just like, by its design, it's really expensive, right? Because we're basically trying to get closer and closer to physically accurate lighting situations, which is like really crazy to get to, right? That's where ray tracing comes in, right? It's trying to get closer to that. Shaded complexity, that is something that you as a dev can manage, but again, it depends. Like all of this stuff depends on the kind of game that you're working, right? Every game is going to have their own concerns. For some games, it might just be the amount of stuff that they want to render on screen and the amount of unique stuff that would be rendered on screen, right? That could be one thing to watch out for. For example, the games that I worked on in the beginning with Planet Coaster, it was actually we needed to make all the models as cheap as possible, because what we did in our game is we made the models and then people made the parks, right? So we had no control over how big or how crazy people made their parks. So the only thing that we could do was that we had to make our assets so cheap that they could actually go crazy to a certain degree and actually fill up their parks with a bunch of stuff, right? But that is not a common issue to have in most games. Whereas like in other spaces, let's say in something like The Last of Us, for example, or yeah, let's I don't know, just spitballing here on like The Last of Us, right? Like it's not necessarily about the amount of stuff, it's about the quality of it, right? So everything needs to look like really good. And that means that you spend like more unique textures to render things like really nicely, or your textures are going to be more expensive, right? Because you want them to be higher quality. So that's going to put more pressure on those things. With all those workflows, I sometimes get decision overwhelming me when I get starting out like environment projects. Oh yeah, go for it, Tala. Yeah. I'm trying to be as open of a book that I can be, so it's not like if it's not covered by NDA, then I'm all about this. But Justine, with all the workflows, I get sometimes overwhelmed with starting out environment projects, right? Yeah, but for the most part, like honestly, in the beginning, most of this stuff doesn't really matter. As an artist in the beginning, you should honestly just focus on one thing, and that's making it look as good as you can. Because making something look good is harder to teach someone than it is to teach you to do optimization, right? Because, for example, you make a really beautiful environment, but you've done it with like, I don't know, a bunch of 4K textures, right? All we need to do there is go through all the textures and make them 2K instead of 4K, and we're good, you know? So my advice would be, don't let that overwhelm you. Make things look good first, and make sure that they still like render to like a certain degree on your PC, right? But yeah, like that's where I would start first. Just focus on the visuals, like all this optimization and workflows and all that kind of stuff. Like it's, yeah, to develop it over time. It seems much harder to train someone's artistic eye compared to teaching them a pipeline. Yeah. And a pipeline is always going to be specific to a company anyway. Like whenever I joined a new company, like I had to learn a new pipeline. Because the first company that I worked for used Maya. Second company used Max. Then I switched to Blender, and now I'm using Blender and Max. You know, so it's like, and that's just one example, right? I've used different engines in every company. I used like different pipelines, different workflows, all that kind of stuff. I'm teaching myself to make helium balloons in Blender. Any advice? No. I mean, there's probably going to be good resources online about like making Blender balloons. Honestly, I don't have anything to say there. Just make a sphere, make one part longer, and then attach a rope to it, you know? I feel like when you start a project, it's best to plan what you're willing to do and see what is effective in both quality and performance with maximum efficiency. Yeah, but saying that, like that's also a part of the issue, right? It's like that is probably what Justine is trying to do, but there's so many options that is just like overwhelming, right? So sometimes it's honestly just better to be like, hey, look, I'm gonna make something small. I'm just gonna use this workflow for it, and then I'm gonna learn, and then I'm gonna do the next thing, maybe with a different workflow. Sometimes what could be good though is saying like, hey, look, I want to do this project, and I'm specifically only gonna focus on this workflow, and then do trim sheets, for example, right? Because I mean, all this professional stuff, right? We talked about like industry professionals that work at like the highest quality of their work and they're really trying to push the boundaries, right? That is not feasible to have as an expectation for yourself who's just like learning, right? Like they're miles apart. And you're gonna get there. I promise. You're gonna get there. But don't put that burden on you to have it in the first thing that you do. Or even for your portfolio. Yeah, I have seen that. I have seen that going around, Andrea. I mean, it is good advice though. It is really good advice. Like make it exist and then make it pretty. I feel like that's what I always do. And it doesn't matter if it's like working on the website, if it's working on 3D, if it's working on a drawing, if it's working on anything, right? It is just hey, we're gonna start with something that looks like shit, which is fine, and then we're gonna make it pretty. Because everything looks like shit in the beginning. Trust me on that. Trust me on that. Like making art, it even has like the value of suck, is it what it's oftentimes referred to, right? In the beginning, you're full of hype, you're full of hope, you're excited, you get cracking on the thing, and then slowly but surely that motivation is gonna go down, and then you're gonna end up in this freaking valley that a lot of people don't make it through, which is like the valley of yuck or the valley of suck or whatever you want to call it. And that is the toughest thing because everything looks horrendous. Like it's not even close to what I had in my mind. Like what the hell am I doing? And sometimes you just have to trust the process, keep refining, and then go further. Can we see some early pieces by you? Yeah, sure. I'll show them in a bit. I've been in that valley for too long. So if you're in that valley on a single project for too long, it's not a bad idea to just say like, hey, look, I'm moving on from this. And we're gonna make it smaller. We're gonna make it way smaller. What you want to do in the beginning is you want to set yourself up for success. And the way that you do that, especially in the beginning, when you don't have an expansive skill set to lean on, is by making things super small. You almost want to make the parameters for a successful project, you almost want to make it so that you stumble over them in the beginning. And then over time, you're like, you put the bar a little bit higher, you know? Put the bar a little bit higher. And just, yeah, keep improving over time. Oh, actually, Swan, you know what? That might be a good one for next time. Next time, so next week, we'll go through some of my earlier pieces, and maybe I'll prepare some stuff to go through my project graveyard because there's a lot of stuff in there, and we'll do a little tour for 30 minutes next time. Because that would actually be pretty cool. Do you miss working with stylized? No, not really. But show all the screenshots. Oh my god, there's like almost 1,000 of them. It's crazy. I think yeah, that would be cool. Because there's a lot of stuff that I feel is gonna show the chaos of how I work. Because I think a lot of people had this perception of like, oh, you just pick an endpoint and you just work your way to that and you have a plan and it's fine, right? There's been times where like for my portfolio that I just was like, this is not working, and just deleted the whole scene and started from scratch. What are you currently working on, Timothy? Like a personal 3D project? No, unfortunately not. I'm doing a lot of website work for the community. So my focus now is on building lesson content for our academy that we're going to be launching. It's been a while since I worked on my last project, which was like a medieval village that I was working on. Which also started off as like, oh, I'll do a quick project on like a little building. And then 4 years later, I was building a medieval city. So yeah. Be careful who you take advice from. Oh my god. Let's see though. Sorry, Tala. So far, all my 3D environments I worked alone. So I don't feel like I learned a lot. So I'm trying to find some teamwork events or even similar workshops, but so far I couldn't find one. Well, we do host like a team challenge that's gonna come up like in a month or so, right? Where we put like 5 people together in a team. The thing is though that we do require you to have a certain level. I have no idea what level you are, right? But I'm just saying that if you want to work effectively in a team, we do expect like a certain level of you coming in. So that might not be appropriate, but we'll see. I mean, to be fair, your portfolio might be kick-ass, so I might be talking about it out of my boot. But if you let's see, it is interesting though. Like if you don't feel like you're going quick enough by yourself, what you could do would be a good way. Like honestly, what I've been saying for a while is you have to find people that are sort of in a similar position like you, and you don't even have to work together, but set up like a weekly meeting where you keep each other accountable for the stuff that you're doing. So because that is the way that you're going to be performing, right? And that is also the team dynamic that you're looking for, right? It's because you have other people there in the team, they'll keep you accountable and they'll keep you up to date with stuff, right? But you can do that without having a team setting. So yeah, that's why I'm also here, right? Like doing Whip Wednesday, it's like a weekly check-in to kind of also potentially keep you accountable too. But you have to put in the work. I think it's more effective if you have a friend that's in the same position and you can be like, hey, look, I mean, to be honest, Tim, I just want to work with someone like trusting each other and do specific things like an actual studio. Oh, okay. So you kind of want to, I mean, it sounds like you want to do more of like a game project then already? Or maybe work with a different discipline. Is that what you're thinking? How can I learn my level for the event? So next month, we're gonna be opening up an application form, and then yeah, we're gonna start there. I want to experience the studio because I have no experience. Yeah, but the tricky thing is though, like you have to build up a skill set to then be able to apply to a studio, right? That is a whole tricky thing about it. And I know the industry is like unforgiving. Like a co-working session? I mean, yeah, I mean, you can organize that yourself, no? I mean, I don't want to be demeaning. I sound so demeaning to say this shit. Oh god, sorry. But I feel like if you have people that are sort of in the same position, or maybe you don't, like it would be good to join a community, not necessarily ours, right? Like you, for example, you have Dynasty Empire, which is like free to join for everyone. You can join them if you want to dip your toes into the water. Maybe see if you can find if you can find some like-minded people that are in the same position. Start working with them, right? Pretty active too. Yep. I think yeah. Dynasty Empire is good. They have stuff going on. Jeremy's a great guy, the owner of the community. So yeah, if you want to dip your toes in, obviously, I mean, we run our own community as well. That is yeah. I'm in there in Unreal Source. Yeah, I don't know if I'm being greedy, but like 3 or 4 people work in the same environment. Well, then you just have to look for those people, right? Yeah, I think like Burak is looking for people that work on the same thing, right? I think a co-working session like gives me the impression that it's like you're working together but not on the same thing. Which is honestly what I tend to do a lot as well, even though it's mostly website work these days. I tried to book a slot with you on the website and came back, it was full. Yeah, thank you for trying to book a slot. Currently, I'm not gonna have a lot of I'm not gonna have a lot of open slots because I'm focusing on the academy stuff. But yeah, once we do, we'll send out an email. So that will be the best way to stay in touch and make like a Discord announcement and all that. But yeah, 4 years. Yeah. I've been working on that thing for 4 years, but it's been on and off, because this community takes priority over that. But yeah. Game jams can be fun. Yeah. Game jams can be really fun. It kind of depends on what you're looking into, right? Like if you want to have an experience where you're working together on like the same environment, like a game jam is obviously not going to do it for you, right? Because a game jam, a game jam is literally just, it's not about quality, it's about speed, right? You just got to get stuff out of there because it's only like a couple of days and it's mental and it's just like pedal to the metal. You have to go, make stuff. So yeah, it's completely different to what other people are looking for, right? If you want to make something that is portfolio worthy in terms of like a good quality art and all that kind of stuff, a game jam is not going to be the way to do it. Had a 3D teacher saying he loves seeing a jungle of shit from new 3D artists because they're learning how to put their imagination on display. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like in the beginning, right? Like the biggest struggling point is that you have this like new medium, 3D, and you want to express yourself through that new medium, but you're not technically advanced enough to do it efficiently, right? That's the whole annoying part in the beginning because you're so frustrated that you just can't express yourself in this medium, even though you really love it already. But it's what I like is seeing very talented artists or upcoming people and seeing like how they grow and like how they're trying new things, and it's just like maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll try this, and they're kind of figuring themselves out, right? It's super cool. Andrea's saying, miss those medieval days when we all got to do co-working. Oh, yeah, I know. I do miss them too, though. I do miss them too. But honestly, man, with Lumen and all that kind of stuff, like I can barely run the scene sometimes. I don't know what happened, but like with Lumen, yeah, it was like unwieldy, the scene. But yeah, thank you all so much for the questions. Let's actually switch on over because we're running over time. But I just love chatting with everyone so much. Honestly, Tim being an unoptimized game dev confirmed. No. I'm being an unoptimized artist slash really optimized game dev on my full-time job. You know, like there's two different guys here. You know, I honestly just love when you see like people where they're like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking throw it into Nanite and make like a bunch of like weird stuff and just have fun with it. And then it's just like, oh, and then I go back to my game dev project and this has to be nice. And oh, talking Lumen? Yeah, that might be right. I might be really unoptimized. Love chatting with you too, Tim. Thanks, Toa. Yeah, let's switch it on over, and then we can start diving into some feedback as well, because I haven't done any prep, so it's gonna be flying. What did I say? Flying by the seat of our pants or something like that? We're gonna see. We're gonna see how it goes. It's great to chat and take advices. Yeah, and thank you so much for all the questions, Barack. I know sometimes I might come over like a bit more intense than I intend to. But I do know like it is not easy. For the longest time, I also just like didn't know what I was doing, you know? And then I kind of found like I stumbled my way into 3D, and now I'm here, 10 years later. So it will work out for everyone. You just have to keep at it, slowly chip away at it. Sitting by the fly of our pants, you said. Yeah, exactly. Sitting by the fly of our pants. Yep. That sounds right. Cool. Let's switch it on over, shall we? If we have people here that signed up for Whip Wednesday, feel free to raise your hand or say hi or whatever you want to do to get my attention, and then we'll start with you. Feels like everyone finds their own way to do it. Yeah, I mean, that's also the beauty, right? Because like I know that like this stream specifically is really just I'm trying to help people in their own career path, right? But oftentimes what that means is that I'm trying to hone you for a specific path, which is AAA, right? Because that is what I'm trained in, and I feel like I'm too niche sometimes, and I need to have more experiences in indie or AA because there's so much interesting stuff that happens in those spaces too that I'm frankly like not even aware of, you know? So yeah, all that is to say that I have a specific way of looking, and sometimes like even if you don't make it to I don't know, like a AAA quality or whatever that might mean, right? That doesn't mean that there isn't a space for you in making games, right? The beautiful thing, sorry, I keep going on tangents, but the beautiful thing about Gamescom, where I went like last week or like 2 weeks ago, was that you saw so many different games made by so many different people, which is like completely contradicting like my experiences, right, that I'm used to. And you saw literally this, I don't know if I said this on stream, but I said this to a couple of people in our community already, where there was this beautiful moment when I was sitting with like a bunch of my colleagues from like Ubisoft and Crytek, and like all those people have kind of scattered now, right? And we were talking about like, oh, it would kind of be cool to like I don't know, make a game or something like that on the side, right? Like really make something from ourselves, that we have like full creatorship over. And then next to us was like a group of students that literally did that, and they were having the opposite dream where they said like, oh, like I would love to get into AAA, but like it's so hard to get into. So we kind of just did like the whole, hey, we're gonna start like our own game. We're gonna make it like by ourselves. But we were kind of envious of like each other's position, you know? So it was like really interesting to see that it's like, okay, we have these two separate worlds, and they're kind of just looking at the other world, being like, oh, I wish I had more of what you had, you know? But it was so interesting. The contradiction there. Being a game dev is just a long, grueling journey, but it feels worth it in the end. Yeah, well, here's also the thing, right? Like with being a game dev, being a game dev is not the end of that journey, right? Like to me, what is the most rewarding thing about being a game artist specifically is that you get to develop yourself. And I don't mean in like a technical way, I mean as like a full character, right? Where it is about like, to me, art has always been about like expressing myself and like what I would be interested in expressing, right? And 3D and games just happens to be the medium that I kind of fell into, if that makes sense. And over time, I feel like, you know, maybe I want to try my own stuff, you know, have a more control over that, or maybe do smaller experiences, or maybe make like different kind of art and explore it a little bit more, because it's forever changing, you know. It's I think your artistic journey is something that you do like for your entire life, really. And right now I'm in the phase where I'm doing like the teaching and the mentoring, and then also doing like the AAA stuff. But who knows, like it might become something different in the next 10 years, right? As I go into like the next phase of my life. And that is also going to happen to all of you, right? Like there's going to be different phases in life where like your priorities just shift, and you know, you pick like a different goalpost to now work towards. Expression of the person and understanding yourself better through art. Yeah, exactly. It is. Let's see. So who put up their hand? So we got Alejandro first, we got Lily second, Zoe, and then Abdu. Cool. So Alejandro, where are you? Oh, the list shrunk down. So there we go. Where is my pen? Let's get cracking on some feedback. So, where's your entry, Alejandro? Let's have a look on our Discord. Hello? Oh, here we go. Zoomed right past it. 2nd of September. Let's have a look. Gonna head off for the night. Appreciate the chat. Take care. See you next week. See you next week, Veer. Thank you so much for dropping by. I appreciate it. Okay, so we're in the end game now. Really happy with how it has turned out, especially with all these new changes. A couple of questions for this week. So a real mini question. Here's some cheating the system. How dare you? Is the version of the door sign better or worse? I've had it here in so long, I can't decide if it's distracting. So we're talking about this sign over here, right? I think honestly, if you want to do something like that, do something more interesting. Because make more interesting. Because right now, I mean, we really have a good opportunity to do some additional world building, right? Like this could be like the name of the pub, and then you could tie that name into something that reveals something more about the world, right? Like we can do some like light world building here. Can we also get some feedback? Yeah, for sure. Feel free to jump on in and then we can read them out as well. So if you have any thoughts on this, feel free to help other people. The more, the merrier. So yeah, do some additional world building here. You can do something really cool with, I mean, think about like iconic pubs, right? Like think about the one in Arcane, or think about the one in like other TV shows or games that you can think of. Like they usually have like a really interesting name attached to them, right? So we can definitely make that something more interesting. And then I would keep it. So we're going to keep the sign, but we have to make it more interesting to make it worth our while, right? So yeah. And then maybe, again, play around with the silhouette a little bit more, right? So that you have something that breaks up this line a bit more. So that we actually see it better, right? And you can make it like a real iconic piece. And you can have like, oh, you can do so much cool stuff. You can have like a bunch of wire with like a car battery or something like that, you know? Or you can just like sneak it behind a bar. Boop, it's done. Cool. Second question. How's the lighting, the mood, and anything that sticks out? Or subtle changes that can make an impact? So it is interesting. So what you did really well is, first of all, I like how you compacted the scene and it feels more abandoned and overgrown and all that kind of stuff. I think that was great. What we are missing is just a little bit more of an indication of life, right? I know that last time we talked about like the lit up billboard and all that kind of stuff that was taking too much of your attention, but I feel like we pulled it back so much more now. I feel like we need to integrate a little bit more back into it, right? So for example, what if you see like a slight opening here and there's like light coming from this, right? So we have like light coming from the inside. And all that is supposed to be doing is that we are trying to hint at an indication of, yeah, there's also other people living here too. It's not just a bar, there's also still people living in this slum too, right? And then maybe, like I said, maybe there is like a little, I don't know, a little box with like a little red light or something like that on, right? And then you have like some random like infrastructure cable stuff that is sticking out of it. It almost looks like a human with like their legs sticking out of the box. But yeah, some slight indications of life here and there. And maybe, you know, if this is like same thing here, where you have like the blinds where just like a little bit of light can be peeking through. Oh, so this is not the first time we're seeing this? No, no, no. I've been doing this for, oh my god. Well, specifically this project, I don't know how long. Let me actually quickly look. We started on the 21st of April. That was the first post from Alejandro, and then we had our first session on the 25th. So we've been doing this for a little bit, but I've been doing these sessions for like a couple of years now. So yeah, let's see, just like slight indications of life, you know, ever so subtle. I think that can help a lot. Very subtle indications. What else were you talking about here? So anything that sticks out or subtle changes that can make an impact. So we talked about the light already. I think the clutter that you added is done a really good job. The way that you're adding like all this stuff here, like it's starting to come together really nicely, where you kind of have a separation between like the dirt, right? It's really pulling us in, especially with the purple color coming outside of it. So I think you've done a great job on the main focal point. Now it's just about like filling the rest of it up, right? Yeah, potentially this is going to be very subtle stuff, but potentially keeping these barrels like a little bit darker, or move them like more to the side or something like that, so that you can cluster them like around here or something, right? And then maybe what we can do, I think this is the point where if I want to say one thing, we need to look for opportunities for reuse, right? So what that means is maybe you have a chair, but the chair has a broken leg. Maybe you have like these lights, maybe you have them without actual lights, but you just have like a couple of broken light strings like on the floor somewhere, right? Again, like really thinking about like how you can make the most with the stuff that's already there with like little tweaks, right? So look for reuse. Yeah, what that means is color changes on anything. No lights. Like just quick variations or something, right? Like for example, with the barrels, what you could do is you could just do like a color overlay and you just have like a blue color over it. And then, you know, that's enough to give the impression of like, hey, this is something new. And then maybe you make the barrels a little bit bigger, or you slightly scale them as well. And then you have like a new looking asset, right? And then the second question is, well, the third question technically, any general feedback would be nice about last minute changes and how to get the most of the project before getting ready to share it. Yeah. So we already talked about the reuse, which is going to be really important. Honestly, next couple of steps is, first of all, yeah, doing that reuse, right? So the final steps for the project is thinking about reuse, how to make the most. More stuff, but smarter, right? I want you to make more stuff, but in a smart way by reusing stuff. The second thing here would be to really focus on post-processing, right? Like, maybe not even post-processing, just like those small bits of light and then post-processing. Like, how can you tweak it? Maybe you can add a vignette. Maybe you can push and pull the colors a little bit and like really focus on like the tiny little details, right? And then, yeah, number 3 is really thinking about the presentation, right? They kind of go hand in hand, but with presentation, what I mean is think about your aspect ratio. Think about your aspect ratio, your portfolio presentation, breakdowns, all that kind of stuff. We kind of need to go into how do we finish this and how do we make like good looking portfolio piece out of it, right? And present it really nicely. And for example, with the aspect ratio, now we have like quite a normal aspect ratio. What sometimes looks really nice, or in a lot of cases, honestly, is go for like a cinematic ratio that has like the black bars. And then what I tend to do, this is my personal tip, you don't have to follow this, is then I'll add like the name of the project in very subtle letters, like on the underside of it. And then you can have like your details at the side, right? Just really clean presentation where you're going, instead of like a rectangle presentation, you're going for something that's more wide, a wide angle presentation. Cool. Let me see what's happening in the chat. Where am I looking? The door was definitely a temporary name, so good to go now. When you say unique piece for the sign, do you mean something like uniquely built together sign? Well, see, here's where that point of reuse comes together, right? Because I feel like you have a lot of materials and a lot of construction things already where you can really quickly just bash together a sign made of the materials that are already there, right? So that could be a really quick way of just doing a sign like that. So maybe think about something like that, or like even just reuse the lights here. For example, you could have a sign. Okay, let's say we're going with the working name, right? So the working name is door. But then the middle is going to be like these offset like lights that you have now. And then maybe for the door itself, they kind of just have like a bunch of these railway pieces, right? That they just like stuck in there. And then for the R, you could potentially use I don't know, maybe something else, right? Like maybe a bit of plastic, or maybe like a chair, the top of a chair with like a hole in it. And then maybe go for like 2 legs to create like the R. And just like bashing something together for stuff that's already there, right? Let's see. Some particles might be nice. Some particles could be cool. Some more atmospherics as well could be nice. So we're gonna be looking through the chat now. Can that be done through lighting and decals, or should I go back and do some remodeling? Oh, you're talking about the windows? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the chat. I think for that, the easiest thing is honestly just model like some blinds, right? Like make a quick glass shader on the outside of the window. Throw the blinds in it. Have like a room that is just empty. Like we're not really going to see too much of it anyway. And then just have a light that kind of just like shines through from the interior. Super simple. Yeah, for little cracks, yeah. Yeah, it's super simple that way. And how about the walls? I mean, honestly, I don't mind the walls. I know that they can be improved in terms of like vertex coloring and all that kind of stuff to kind of make it a little bit patchy. If you want to do like a quick iteration here, is do a height blend instead of a normal blend. Or if you're already doing a height blend, then you just need to improve the height that you're using from your bricks. But if you just do like a height blend, you're gonna be looking so much better. Cool. The contrast is too much between the plaster and the bricks. Yeah, I mean, You are right. I mean, it is very contrasty. The way that I tend to look at scenes is, um, if the rest of the scene wasn't so like in your face contrasty, then it would have been a bigger issue. I don't necessarily mind it right now. It's kind of just like one of those things where it's like you could tweak it, but I don't really mind it in terms of like the whole scene. But probably in terms of like realism, you're probably right though. It does make a lot of sense. So yeah, feel free to do with that feedback what you want. Alejandro, I think it's good feedback though. Like, feel free to take that into account. Yeah. In this scene, the main story is a purple wall and the purple bar, and the wall keeps the attention. I don't necessarily think so. But I do see that if you were to reduce it, it makes it even clearer, right? That's the kind of what I was saying. I know that there's like a stream delay as well, which is kind of annoying. But that's kind of what I'm saying. If the scene itself wasn't super contrasty, it would have been a bigger issue. But because we have like a really contrasting scene, it's less of an issue now, in my opinion. Yeah. Well, let Alejandro see what he wants to do with that feedback. Yeah, and thank you for sharing, Alejandro. Super awesome to see this scene. I love the latest iteration that you've done. A lot of stuff really came together. You're doing a lot of detailing. It's coming together really nicely. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing like next week's update, if not like the final update. I'm curious. Yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. And yeah, thank you for the additional feedback. Really appreciate it too. And Slate is saying the same thing. This project has improved so much. It looks awesome. Juan is saying the same thing. Oh, apparently you're going on a holiday as well. Let's go. Cool. Next one up is Lily, and we are on Lily's piece already. Finally in the final steps. The only thing that matters is that you got there in the end, right? Like, it is awesome to see it. It has been amazing to follow like the commitment and just like the weekly updates and all that kind of stuff. I feel like you've grown so much as well. So well deserved, man. Well deserved. Okay, Lily, let's have a look. The questions I'll be asking for is what needs more polishing in the assets so far? Okay, we're going to be looking at some assets. Ooh, the assets are coming out really nice though. Especially because you're going for like a bolder look, right? So if you focus on this stuff, you can kind of see how it captures like the light really nicely. And that just complements the scene really well, right? Because you're not going to see like the fine detail anyway. For example, this kind of stuff kind of gets lost because it's just like it's too small from like the angle that we're looking at it, right? But I mean, that's beside the point. I don't really want you to remove it anyway, but nice. This came together like really quickly as well. This is cool. I think what might be worth is, I'm not sure how to do it, but I'm gonna say what I'm thinking, right? It would be worth to potentially make this whole thing, like the whole main piece, feel a little bit more, feel more like gold. Because right now, I don't know if it's the reflection or the colors or something like that, but it doesn't feel like it has like a shine to it. It feels very flat in terms of the material response, right, that we're getting from it. And it is like the main piece, so it would be nice that we can spend some more attention getting it to look like really shiny and really fancy, right? Concept art. Reminded me of the bar scene in Arcane. Yeah, it must be something like that, right? I can't remember what the original concept was for. Because my brain's like a sieve. It's a concept art from Due Feng, which is the thing that we can see here. I'll put it in here. Ta-dam. I think it's because of the lighting. I can try to make it pop more. Yeah, I think it's a combination of like a bunch of things, right? Like if the material has the same kind of response like we're seeing here, then we know that it's not necessarily the material. It's more like how we then highlight it, maybe with like some fake lights, or maybe having like um I don't know how this works in Lumen actually, but maybe having some extra reflection capture spheres. Not spheres, I don't think they work anymore, but hmm. Yeah, maybe something that allows us to highlight this section more. So making it stand out more. Because I think so, I mean, it also is up to you, right? The way that I'm looking at things is always I'm trying to look at it from, okay, what can we improve, right? And sometimes the concept art is good, but we can potentially like improve upon it, right? So maybe at this point, like you could also think about what would you do if it wasn't like a concept art, right? Like how would you improve on top of it? Color correction volumes might help. That's a good shout actually. So some notes. Color correction volumes. Color correction volumes, they might help. Also insecure about getting the proportions right, so glad to hear it. Yeah, I think you've done a fantastic job on it. Post-process volume. Yeah, exactly. So exactly like Abdu was saying, like it's a post-process volume, but it's basically just like it's very regional, so you can like specifically correct like certain areas in your scene. That might help with that area potentially. Let me see. What was your question again? Oh, that's interesting. So Darson actually mentioned something that I was going to bring up as well, like the shadows for some of the lights as well. They might help, but it kind of depends on where you want to add them, right? So like picking a couple spots where you're like, hey, look, turn the shadows on for these, but then other spots, maybe not, right? So have a play around with those shadows, see what you can do there. So that's a good point. But you mentioned or you asked like what would be polishing more in the assets, right? And I think you've done a fantastic job on like nailing the look of it. Are these meant to be floating? Am I only seeing this now? Oh, no, they're not supposed to be floating. What happened here, Lily? I think honestly it's just a missing trim. Small detail, but cool. When we're talking about decal, when we're talking about polishing, right? I think it might be nice. Yeah, it looks so professional. Yeah, Burak. Yeah, I totally agree. What I was gonna say when it comes to polishing, right? Let's make a checklist, right? So we already kind of talked about it with Alejandro just a little bit. In your case, it's going to be slightly different. I think where we can see some improvements is with decals or blending. What I mean by that is, let's say on these floor pieces, right? It would be cool that we can sometimes see like a little bit of dirt, just the crevices, you know? And just having that like occasionally, that could be cool. or maybe just like a spill on the floor, you know, where like a guest has like dropped something and there's like a spill on the floor. Maybe we can then reuse that spill, scale it down, and just have like a little spill on the floor here. It is literally that kind of stuff that really makes or breaks a scene, right? Like that attention to detail where we're just thinking about like spills, dirt, anything else like that in decal form. Usually that stuff is like really simple to do because you only have to do like one decal and you can just scatter it around the whole scene, right? Or maybe two, depending on how much you're going to be using it. But it's super cheap and you can really add like a lot of variation with it. You can potentially do the same thing with some of the wall pieces as well. So let's say you have like a dirt on the floor, you could potentially use like some of that dirt to like cover up these areas too. Could be interesting to look into. It might also be interesting to like optionally set up like a quick vertex paint. I don't know if you have like a dirt like material lying around that you can maybe reuse, but that would be like optional. Because it would basically be like, okay, either you do it with like decals or either you do it with like vertex paint, right? I mean, you could technically use a combination of the two, but and then we kind of go into just like lighting tweaks, right? Like really balancing the lighting, turning on shadows where it matters, like really finessing the scene so that we're balancing all the light properly. For example, what I mean by that is we have these big lights, which are looking really cool, but then you kind of have like these spots in the background. And it would be kind of nice to potentially think about like how intense they need to be for them to still be valuable, right? Because we want to retain the focus on the main piece. And some of those dots might be slightly too distractive. And I'm literally talking about just turning them down like 15% or something like that, right? And doing the same thing for those smaller spots. And then maybe pick some areas where like, no, we can keep this lamp and then we'll keep these two guys. And then the rest of it, we kind of try to balance the whole scene. So that would be a thing to look into when it comes to lighting. So really going through it with a fine-tooth comb and just bringing more balance. And then also, I think this... Yeah, I think the volumetrics are like really in line with the concept art now, which is really nice. Yes. Yeah, so lighting and then post-processing. And then we go into like a presentation. And then presentation. Cool. And really have a play around with like how you're going to do the presentation. You can really leverage like having like a really nice border in the same kind of motifs as like the main part here, right? If you really finesse that and you make it look like a part of the scene, you can bring the whole thing together, not from like one image, but through the whole portfolio post, right? But yeah. Cool, good stuff, Lily. And any tips for post-processing for this environment? We're not gonna have to do too much, honestly. I think the color correction volumes can help a little bit, you know, with like fine tweaking where you want the attention. When it comes to other post-processing, I would maybe add like a subtle vignette. You're not gonna have too much because you have like a nice natural vignette happening already. And the way that I like to do things is I take things into Photoshop and I just play around. And then I'll go crazy with like hue, saturation, lightness, play with the levels and see if I find something that I like. And then potentially if you want to be somewhat lazy like myself, then you can encode all those adjustment layers from Photoshop into a LUT texture, which is like a colored lookup table texture. And then just directly put that into the post-processing module inside of Unreal. And then you have those changes there as well. super quick way of doing post-processing if you're like really scared about like the scary looking post-processing inside of Unreal. But yeah, cool stuff, Lily. Thanks so much for showing your work. This is awesome though. Really awesome stuff. Yeah, looking forward to the next update. And we're going to be having a look at the next person. So Zoe. Zoe is next. Where is Zoe in the list? It's been a while since we looked at your work, Zoe. Looking sweet. I like it. Let's have a look how I can help you. Camille is sharing a whole bunch of like valuable feedback already. That's awesome. I think any pointers on lighting would be really helpful because I feel like that's where I struggle the most. Okay. Oh, that's a good question, Barak. So yeah, the whole conversation about like, oh, do post in Photoshop and isn't that going to be cheating for the portfolio, all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily. I mean, you can show artistic intent through doing that step, right? And if you really feel like you're kind of cheating, do like the suggestion that I said, right? Where you take all of your adjustments, you then encode that into a texture, and then you just like take that into Unreal. It's basically going to come down to the same thing. And then you can just look at it like in Unreal itself. The reason why I prefer that step in the beginning is because most people are usually familiar with Photoshop to a certain degree, that like post-processing is so much easier. Because sometimes post-processing inside of the engine, or let's say DaVinci Resolve, or wherever you want to do it, looks so daunting because there's so many options. It's not necessarily cheating. I feel like, let's say you were completely to distort the look, then yeah, okay. Like, if you can't even make it representable of like the look how it is, right? Like if you're really changing it to be specifically something different. Like I'm talking about like almost an overpaint, right? Where you go in and you paint like additional things on top of the stuff that you've done. Then yeah, okay. That's not going to be feasible, right? But any post-processing, well, it's not too bad. But it's a good question though. I feel like that's a common question. Not really cheating because lighting artists in a studio will do the lighting work anyway. That's how I think of it. It could be wrong though. Yeah, like you have people that do like the lighting and the post-processing in bigger studios, right? It's also, yeah, I still feel that there's like a lot of value in saying like, hey, look, I did tweak this in Photoshop to be like, I don't know, more like this because of this reason. I think if you can explain your process and you can still showcase it, I think that's more valuable than only having it in the engine. Okay, let's have a look at Zoe. So lighting for the most part, right? Because that's what you struggle with the most. So my general tip on lighting, and feel free to tell me if this is going to be helpful or not. But my general tip on lighting is that it needs to be in service to the prop, right? So what I mean by that is that you want to showcase your prop in the best light, literally. So what I tend to do is I start from the basics most of the time. And especially for a prop, it always helps to kind of have like a 3-point light setup, right? It's tried and true. It is like the typical way of setting something up, and it gives you a baseline to then work from, right? So 3-point lighting setup. It is basically you have your main light, which is like your main light, let's say. Then you have a fill light, and then you have a light that comes from the back to be the rim light, right? And they all have a separate purpose. So the first light, what's the name First light. Totally blanking on it. You have blah blah blah, fill light, and then the rim light. God. Okay, whatever. So this first light, the main purpose is gonna be the most intense light, right? So it's usually gonna be the most intense light, and it has a surface. It basically has the purpose of just giving your scene like enough light to be visible, right? And highlighting some of the nice edges. So enough light so that we can see the whole thing, and then we want to highlight some areas. Right, so for example, we have like a really beautiful piece of glass here. So wouldn't it be nice to potentially like already like highlight some of those edges, right? So I would be looking to capture like some of those like nice edges that you have with this light, because the light is going to come in from the right. Then we want to highlight some of those nice metallic edges. Then we have the fill light, which the main purpose is to reduce the contrast a little bit of the scene, right? Because if we just have one light, then we're going to be working with like a very intense, like single shaped light. So the fill is basically going to be filling in the shadows. But we can, in this case, like I would be looking to like position my fill light in such a way that it kind of creates like a little streak or like a little glint on the glass here. And the thing that I'm doing with that is I'm trying to, oh, thank you so much for helping me out. Thank you so much for helping me out, Nima. The key light, that's it. So number one is the key light. So much. Two is a fill. Or three is a rim. What I was saying is that you can kind of see that I'm looking for opportunities to highlight specific areas of the prop that I think are going to be interesting, right? So anything that's shiny, anything that requires like additional attention to itself, like I would position my camera and my lights in such a way that it captures like the beautiful aspects of your prop, right? So this literally is just what I would do is I would have two screens of Unreal. I would have one that has my camera, and I'm only looking through my camera, and I'm moving lights until I find like a position where it's like, ooh, okay, we're capturing like something nice here. Okay, let me keep it at that. Let me move the fill, try to do the same thing. And we're trying to put an emphasis on like the nice variation that we put into our textures, and we're trying to highlight the shape of the object as well, which is where the rim comes in as well. So the rim light is usually behind the object because we want to enhance the silhouette of the scene, of the object, right? Yeah, just a really quick overview. Obviously, what you're going to be running into is that there's no natural way of having a rim light in the back of your prop currently. So it might, what could be a good way of doing this? Because sometimes what might be nice is that, oh, we have like a window, you know? So there's like, there happens to be a window here, and then we can kind of make use of like a rim light coming in, and that's highlighting the asset, right? In this, you don't really want to fake it too much because then it's going to look out of place in its environment. So yeah, that's like a big warning here, or like a big exclamation mark, I guess. So the lighting, it needs to feel natural. Natural and like in scene as well. I was thinking about placing it by the window, perhaps. Yeah, that's what I Yeah, that's what I really struggle with. Yeah, exactly. So this is the thing where you kind of need to be creative with the way that you're using the scene to like highlight the asset properly, right? And it literally comes down to, okay, what is the stuff that I need to highlight? And that's why having like a simple setup, like the 3-point light setup, right? So commonly used, it's so relatively easy to set up, and then you can tweak it to kind of where you want it to be, right? But yeah, try to find like an opportunity to then have like a window in the back, or it doesn't have to be a window. It can also be like a fake light that can be behind it, and maybe they're doing some repairs on this thing. Or like Nima is saying, maybe some bounce light from a mirror so that it doesn't affect like the overall lighting value. That could also be an interesting solution, right? So that you get like, you basically have the light that's coming from your fill light or your key light, it doesn't bounce back with like a reflective surface in the back, right? Oh my god, by the window is going to be full moon. Yeah. The idea behind it, but what exactly is a 3-point lighting setup? Well, basically what we did here, right? So you have your three lights. So you have your key, your fill, and your rim light, and they just let me see if I can give an example. Mm, 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 mm. Where can I find the stuff that we did for the studio stuff? Need to remember where I store stuff, honestly. Let's have a look. Bionic Synth Studios. Save screenshots. All right, so for example, these guys, they all use like a 3-point lighting setup, right? It's meant to be very clean, very, very clinical in this way, right? You can kind of see that I have like a rim light coming from the back, kind of giving you like these nice highlights, right? Kind of showing you like all the reflective like variation that we have. You have like the one light that's coming from in the front, kind of just like lighting up the whole scene. And then another light coming in from the side, trying to get rid of like all the contrast in the scene, right? Or like making the shadows like less intense. And then you can kind of see what that does, right? And like it's literally just like positioning the asset or either like the light in a way that it just captures those like nice elements, and that you can see like, ooh, there's some nice roughness variation here. Obviously, you have to then also work with the light, work with the textures to kind of have that feeling, right? Oh, I guess I closed it. Do we have any more examples? I think the chair example is probably the best one. No, no, don't worry about the interruption. So you can kind of see that it's all using the same setup, right? And like sometimes maybe I'll tweak the lights depending on where I want the angle to be, right? But that's the main purpose, so that you get like these nice highlights in the props. So yeah, no, it's all good. I didn't realize you should do a 3-point setup even in an environment. That's very helpful. Well, you don't have to, right? But I feel like it's honestly just the easiest way to like showcase something, especially when it's in like an environment. The same sort of principles are still gonna be useful. We just have to do them in a different way, right? Because if we're just showcasing like a single asset, then we can literally just get away with like having like a couple of lights. But with an environment, we kind of have to think about like how we make it natural again, right? You can see that in movies as well, where they will add like lights to the scene, because then it makes sense for like the actors' faces and how they're lit up, right? And it's just to give you something to attach to. But yeah. Awesome stuff. But yeah, really, really good stuff. I like the scene already. And I think if you, yeah, there's so much opportunity in this prop. Like you can see, like if you find like a nice way to highlight some of these areas, this prop is gonna look so good. It's really just about like selling it, right? The last thing that I'll say is I kind of danced around it a little bit, but what I refer to a lot is I paint with light. So I kind of don't think about lighting as in like, oh, I need to set up lights. I literally just look at like where I can paint beautiful edges on the asset, right? That's the way that I think. Like I'll literally use the light as like a brush to like paint my canvas. Very picky, so I tend to overthink lighting a lot. That's completely fine. That's completely fine. I know that lighting for me was like a big struggle point as well at the beginning. So I totally get it. But yeah, great job, Zoe. Great job. And yeah, looking forward to seeing the next iteration. Breck is saying, it looks perfect. I love it. Breck is also saying Blade Runner is perfect for understanding the lighting setups. Yeah, honestly, like I Blade Runner is a good example, right? Because it has like such heavy contrasting lighting, and there's so much contrast in the textures and the surfaces of that movie. Like really interesting. What I also tend to do is for assets, like look at how design studios are set up. So for example, like a lighting rig for a car, right? If Mercedes wants to present like a new car, they have like a lighting rig. And it's really interesting to learn from like how they set up light and like how they use bounce light and like how big the panels are and like all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting to look at something from a studio setting and then see how you can then use that in your own designs as well. Rocks, such improvement. Let's go. We're not there to talk about the rocks just yet, I think. Who's next? Abdu is next. Sorry, McVal. Sorry for the fake hope. Let's see. Let's see. Where's Abdu? Welcome, Abdu. Working on a new portfolio piece that's used to be in game. 90% done with the prompts. The layout and lighting might change a little bit. It's inspired by Northern Algerian houses. That's awesome. Like to hear your thoughts, suggestions, and feedback if you have any. Cool. Yeah, so let me go through it really quickly. The first thing that I will say is we need to be... Yeah, this shot is like quite nice. We need to be careful with this shot, like where you want people to focus, right? So that would be like the first note to make here is... Where does the focus go? Because a lot of it just goes to this door because it is so intense in contrast, right? It is the lightest point of the scene. It is so intense. So a lot of focus is going to go to this space. Where potentially you just wanted to have it on like this little cozy space, right? So just like closing the door maybe, or like having it like slightly open or something like that can help with that already. Or maybe, I don't know, doing something else outside, right? Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, we kind of have this little cozy scene set up, which I do really like. Yeah, if you're saying that you're 90% done with the props, the layout and the lighting might change a little bit. If we're talking about like broad feedback, right? Talking about broad feedback is thinking about wear, age, and blending. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of materials in the space, but they all feel like really clean, right? They all feel like they haven't been touched, or like there hasn't been like anything that happened to it necessarily. You have some like really cool stuff coming in on like the chairs and like some of the stuff here, but the stuff in the focal point where like we are going to be watching is pretty clean, right? So especially some of the fabrics, like trying to break them up, get some more variation in that. And then also thinking about, yeah, how do you treat like bigger surfaces, and like what do you want to, how do you want to break that up, right? Because yeah, sometimes what you might have is that people are going to be walking here a lot because it's a fridge, right? So we're probably going to see like more like wear and tear over here and at the entrance compared to here, right? So those kind of things, they would be like pretty interesting. Maybe not for this one, but for the next one at least, right? So a couple of things to look into: the clean fabrics, especially because what I tend to focus on is around the focal point, right? Because that's where we're drawing the attention. So I want most of the attention and the work actually going into the focal point. So those clean fabrics can use like a little bit of dirtying up. As an architect, the fridge's placement is not optimal. Yeah, I feel like these very rural houses, these are always like an architect's worst nightmare, you know? Or like a building safety person's like worst nightmare. I struggle a lot with that because that's where a lot of the light comes from in the scene. Tim, for a medium environment or for a medium environment scene, how long should it take for industry standards? Not like a room, but like Lily's project size. Oh, if we're talking about something like Lily's, like you got to have a couple of months at least for a project like that. 'Cause yeah, we like it dangerous. Yeah, so really think about like the wear and tear, the aging, and the blending of all the materials, right? And also, I know we're keeping this pretty broad because what I tend to do is I asked for what I asked for technically for these Whip Wednesdays is that I want you to ask me specific questions to get specific answers. In this case, I don't think I've seen you here before, so welcome. But like at least not in Whip Wednesday. So it's lovely to see you, but it would be nice if you could ask like specific questions, because then we can really deep dive into those things, right? So the third thing that I was gonna write down was, what was it again? I think wear and tear, blending, clean fabrics, all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, context. So in at large, the cause and effect. And what I mean by that is how something is used, or how different elements in the scene interact with other elements of the scene, right? Because a lot of that has the impact of grounding things together. Because right now what is happening is you have a lot of really cool assets, but it's almost like they stand alone. Like it's almost like we're looking at a presentation for like a lot of props rather than a consistent themed a consistently themed like environment, right? So the cause and effect of that could help. So an example of that would be, let's say, what would be an easy example in this scene? For example, an easy effect could be where this candle is partially burned. We're gonna have like wax dripping down, and that wax has collected down at the bottom, right? That's a simple example of cause and effect, or like tying things together. And the same can happen in more simple ways, right? So for example, this chair, maybe it pushed up like a part of the carpet, and the carpet is like partially folded up here because of the chair that got pushed up. And it just like, it ties those two things together. And if we do that in multiple ways, then it feels like this is actually like natural things like interacting with each other and tying together. For example, we're seeing some cool stuff happening here, right? Where the chaoticness of like the cables and all that kind of stuff kind of ties in with like how chaotic the rest of the scene is set up. So that could be cool. For example, here, like the pots and pans that we have here, the wood on the floor, there's probably going to be splinters and like shavings and all that kind of stuff underneath. There's probably going to be like leftover bits of like coal because someone has to like refill this thing, right? And then there's like coal on the floor. Maybe a bit of like a patch is like damaged on the carpet or something. It is stuff like that that would be good to think about in like a large scale, right? Like in these one rooms with everything, usually they set the main heat source of in the middle for better efficiency. Yeah, so that would be a good question, because from like an architect's perspective, that would probably make sense, right? But I'm really curious about the references here and what we can learn from them specifically. Because I feel some of that stuff logically makes sense, right? For example, the thing you're saying about like a stove in the middle of the room makes sense. But I feel like what we're going to see from the references is that it might just contradict it. But I honestly have no idea because we don't really have references here, right? So next time, it will be cool if we can have like some references as well. That's always super helpful because you can learn so much from it. And also like all those things that we talked about, we can get those from references too. Yeah, but that's about it. That's all I have to say for this one. It's a really cool environment though. Like I love these like rural pieces that, yeah, that you don't stereotypically see, right? So yeah, great stuff. I'm just looking from the different perspective and give it more cozy vibe. Yeah, that could be a good way to do it. Oh yeah, I see. Sorry, I didn't read your thing before. So the fire in the center would be given more cozy vibe. Yeah, that is true. That is true. It's it's also a thing where, yeah, I guess it kind of comes down to the reference thing again, right? It is just, it depends on how these structures are built and like how people then make the most of it, right? Because a lot of this stuff is just going to be like handmade, right? With like local materials and stuff. So yeah, cool. But thank you so much for sharing, Abdu. Lovely to see your work. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it next week, even though you say like you're 90% done with the props. So I don't know what the next update will be, but I'm looking forward to it. And then next one we have Long Pig. Long Pig is here with a nice little update. Before we dive into that, let me just grab a quick toilet break. I'll be right back. Oh, I was talking the entire time and you couldn't hear me. That is great. I was just saying, like, updates next week again. That's awesome. Looking forward to it. Hadzino is saying, I want to make an ornamental decal trim sheet. Am I allowed to grab free brushes on ArtStation and model the high poly there? Or do I create my own decals normal? Do I need to reference it? References always. I mean, but if you're grabbing like an ornamental decal from like ArtStation, you technically don't need references, right? But yeah. In general, no one's gonna stop you from doing it. So you can do whatever you want. Let's see. So long pig. Where are we? Spend a lot of time messing around with the lighting and post-processing. Can't help, but color-wise it's feeling pretty dull. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It is very what's the word that I'm looking for? Sterile? Not sterile. Very, yeah, it's, I guess it's just like kind of very dull in colors, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is looking really cool though. I like the new additions with the shadow and the light and all that kind of stuff. That's looking awesome. The only thing that bothers me is if we get really close, like the texture is not holding up well. So that is an issue. So the texture doesn't hold up. So a couple of choices there. Either we up-res the texture, find a different texture, or we just don't do like that close detailed shots, right? Let's see. That's just going freaking mental outside. Any feedback on the lighting, post-processing, etc. is welcome. I feel like honestly you're getting pretty close. The only thing that I'm still missing, and I don't know, this is where we get into like screen space, ambient occlusion, and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, because Lumen is not great at rendering shadow like this. It's not great at it. So we need to find a way to actually get like that context shadow or screen space shadow or whatever, and then like kind of tweak it. But yeah. So that's what I would try to do is contact or screen space shadow. I hate Lumen. Lumen, oh my god, Lumen is so good. It just has restrictions, you know? Screen space AO. So that's going to be console commands. I think we talked about this last time as well to get that right, but yeah. It's going to be specific. Let's see. That's about the only thing though. I think the lighting is really good. The way that it highlights the blade now looks really nice. There is something... There's potentially something more that we can do with like the roughness here. Like really playing around with like highlighting like the buttons, or maybe you have like an oily streak or something like that, you know, like something that highlights this area more. That is going to be pretty interesting, because otherwise like the blade itself looks really nice, right? Obviously it's metal, so it's going to be more shiny by default. But then the area that you focus on here, it just needs a little bit more oomph, you know? So maybe playing around with the roughness, getting a bit more contrast in there, making more use of like the little metal bits that you have on there, maybe tweaking the lighting, you know? it basically, I'm going to repeat a lot of what we said in Zoe's post, right? So it's literally just painting with light and just being like, hey, look, I'm gonna angle the light in such a way that it hits those like nice roughness spots. In this case, you could probably get away with having fake lights that just like highlights those like accents, like quite nice. I do have some fingerprint stains. Fingerprint stains are one of those like annoying things where it kind of looks like it just looks janky whenever you do it on it. Like, I feel like fingerprint stains can only work because really think about it, right? Like, if you hold something, like you're not going to be holding it at the correct angle all the time where you have like a perfect fingerprint. It's always going to be smeared, right? So any fingerprint just feels like super fake because that's just not the normal way that it looks, right? So either you try to recreate like a smear or something like that from fingerprints, or some like natural interaction from like actually holding the blade, right? That would be good to potentially try to mimic here. But honestly, like no matter what way you do it or through what way, like just making sure that it like we have a little bit more contrast and we exaggerate a little bit the contrast of whatever material it is, right? To make it shine more. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, honestly, that's about it. I would say also, paint with light, right? See Zoe's feedback. Literally just take a point light, or in this case, because you're working with like a long object, it could be nice to have like a rectangular light that is pretty long, and then just like try to angle it at a certain angle where it just captures like a glint or an edge or whatever you can do. But that's honestly what I would do, right? So that's why I keep referring to it as paint with light, right? Because I would literally be like, hey, look, we're going to start with like the fill light. Okay, we're just going to move it around and keep the camera in the static position, right? Just move it around and just be like, ooh, okay, nice. Okay, now we're going to tweak it. You know, make it bigger, make it smaller, paint with it, and then see. But yeah, the rest of it is pretty nice. Also, you mentioned texel density on the texture over here. If we're doing like a detailed shot like this, screw texel density, you know? Go like up. Like if this is a 2K texture, make it a 4K one. No one's gonna care. It's just a background thing anyway, right? Again, the priority is on making stuff look really good compared to making it really enough, making it like look like it belongs in the game. It's so backwards sometimes, but yeah. Like I said, it's always easier to optimize something than teach someone how to make good art, right? So yeah. Cool. That was a quick one, Long Pig, but yeah, great stuff. I love the improvements that you've done. Looks way more natural, feels more real. Now it's just like really putting the detail in it. I think I get really hung up on texel density. Yeah, you don't have to. Like, I know that a lot of people make a big deal out of it, including myself. I mean, I wrote a fucking guide on texel density, right? So I know that I shouldn't be like putting it down, but for this kind of stuff, when it comes to presentation, right, it is good that you showcase that the sword itself can be within texel density and still look really good, but the rest of it, like, it's background stuff, you know? So cool. Thank you, Long Pig. Appreciate it. And then we have Mikval, who's on the screen right now. So let's have a look. Have you heard of Mountain Blade? Oh yeah, baby. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, getting pretty hot in here. Let me. Okay, we're back. Oh, my awesome new shirt that I got from Gamescom on. To contrary to popular belief, it's not a band shirt. Well, I'll show it. If anyone can guess it from that little thumbnail image that you got from my camera. Fun. Okay, let's see. McVal. Where are we going? So, how do the clips look currently? Combination? Do they blend well, or is there too much contrast between the meshes? What am I looking at? Are they just like... Are these just like different iterations? Oh, I got some decals on there. What am I looking at? It's the one without the foliage. It's one without foliage and one without decals. Oh, I see. I see. So I can basically, what you're saying is I can basically ignore these. Cool. I had a question a couple of minutes ago. Let me have a look. Catch up. Boom, boom, boom. Scroll through. Do studios give attention to details like architecture that much? Like, can I use my knowledge in games to look more natural? Or how can I use it? I mostly focus on fictional scenes. Oh no, it can be like really popular. I mean, I loved watching a talk about the city design of like Night City, for example. There's a person with like an architectural background that helped design the whole city, which was really cool to see. Um, whether you're gonna be able to leverage that in a specific position, I mean, it's gonna be a benefit, right? But it's gonna be on top of the environment art stuff. Whether you can actually leverage that in a project kind of depends on what kind of project it's going to be, right? But I mean, having like an architectural background, and I mean, she focused more on urban design, which is kind of different. Like having like an architectural background is definitely going to be helpful, for sure. For sure. Okay, cool. Let's see, McFell. So the combination of all of it, it's starting to look really, really good. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. Like I feel like we're going back and forth. Like we're going from like, oh, there's too much small detail to like, oh, now it's too big. Right? Like I kind of want to see like, I don't know. I mean, I like it. I like what's going on. I like how the blending works and all that kind of stuff. I think you did a fantastic job there. But compared to okay, let me illustrate this, right? This is what I'm feeling. So this is one end, this is the other end. And I'm trying to get us somewhere in this range, you know? That's the range that I'm good with. And I feel like we're going from like somewhere here, and then we're making a jump, and like now we're here again. Right? So I'm like, okay, now we need, like last week I remember that we pushed for like more bigger shapes, right? Which is like, I mean, they are really big shapes now, which I do really like. But then I still want to see like more smaller shapes coming in here and breaking up those big shapes again, right? I don't know if that's still the plan or if that is still work in progress or whatnot, but that's what I'm trying to get us to. But I mean, visually, like the question that you actually asked, like the way that it blends with like all the rocks and all the decals and all that kind of stuff looks freaking awesome, man. Maybe I got sidetracked from the question, but Blending looks great. It's gonna be cool, especially with those like additional shapes in there as well, right? That's gonna look so good. Because right now, I feel like the contrast might stand out, right? Especially when we have like spaces like this. But that is only because it is surrounded by a shape that is very, very clean, right? So once we then start breaking it up with like a couple of smaller sections and all that kind of stuff is gonna blend together like way nicer. See what you mean? I want to make a few more meshes to break it up a bit more. Yeah, I mean, you could literally use the meshes that we were talking about last time and then just integrate them within this wall, right? That's the way that I'm looking at it. Like you could I feel like if you compare or if you add the assets that we had last week to the assets that we have this week, I feel like you have like a perfect set that you can just play around with and you can bash them together and it's going to look awesome. Yeah, the blending starts to look really, really nice. Yeah, some really cool stuff, man. I mean, you're doing a lot of good work, you know? A lot of really, really solid stuff. I love how these like little ledges are coming in and all that kind of stuff as well. That's gonna look cool. Yeah, great stuff. And your second question was about the composition of the scene, right? So you feel that the right-hand side is empty, and I'm not sure if adding a background terrain later will solve that. Maybe I could add some rock formation in the foreground. Do you have any feedback on the composition currently? You know what? Like, honestly, just do it. Because, I mean, it's, oh, wait, sorry. Before we get into that, I'm using those meshes. I can add more of them, so there's more balance. Hold on, let me look. Okay, let me get some context here. Okay, I want to make sure that we get that point across, right? Okay, so what I'm thinking is that we almost need something like this, right? Where this is going to be such a shitty Photoshop job, but hey, we're here for it. You know, where we need to infuse like this kind of noise. Oh god. I shouldn't get carried away with this, but I mean. Ugh. What am I even doing? Whatever. So this is what I'm talking about, right? So that you get these spots that I can't help myself, can I? That you have these spots that are like more intense in terms of like their detail compared to the flatness that you have currently going, right? Just making sure that we kind of get that like across so that you have a balance between this looks way better. Yay, shitty Photoshop skills, let's go. Yeah, no, it's more about like, okay, you have these big surfaces which look really nice, and then you just sprinkle in like areas where you just like bash stuff together to kind of have like detail versus rest, and it kind of starts to feel like nicer, you know? Or like not nicer. I mean, that's not a descriptive word. It's more interesting. We're adding more contrast in terms of shape language, right? So it becomes more interesting to look at from a detail perspective. Cool. Okay, so now we're moving on to the second question. which is more like a composition. Honestly, it's gonna be pretty simple, right? Like, I mean this in the best possible way. It's just you gotta try it. Like, you have all the tools and like all the assets available now. If you think that like, oh, I feel like the right hand side is empty, make it not empty, right? Because I I mean, we could love to speculate. I love to speculate and I love to like talk about it. But honestly, the best thing in these cases is just, hey, I think the right side is going to be empty. Throw some stuff in there, and if it still feels empty, then we need to fill it up somehow, right? But we can only get there when we give it a try. And that's going to be way more impactful to then us speculating about it, right? Because honestly, once you start filling this space up, you're gonna have a better understanding of how the whole scene feels at large, right? And then you're gonna have to do some iterations by yourself, or well, you're gonna be motivated to do some more iterations by yourself. Yeah, yeah, this stuff is coming along like really nicely. So you're doing like an amazing job. Get some more of those rocks in there, and you're gonna be good, man. Like, I feel like honestly, like it took us a while to get here, which is totally fine, right? But yeah, this is what a typical benchmark is, right? You're trying something new, you're building like a whole bunch of new tools, and you're trying to set like a benchmark of like, okay, how far can I push this? Like, how far do I push the art? Like, what do I need? And it's uncomfortable. It's like it's a pretty long process because you're trying a bunch of new stuff. But now we're seeing the end result, and we're getting really close to it. So yeah, like building this like mountain in the back is gonna be easy peasy. Yeah, good stuff. When it comes to the composition, right? If you want to talk about that again, like fill in the mountain in the background, and then honestly just look at it again. And then maybe you have to like adjust some of like the atmospherics that you have going on, or maybe add some more mountains like here in the foreground, maybe. But I actually like to see, I like that we can see how deep it is, right? So I don't really want to change that all too much. We just need to get like a couple of mountains in the background and then see how that looks. And then we can see how we want to balance the rest of the scene and do like a couple of iterations, right? Yeah, but awesome stuff, man. I mean, not too many notes from my side. Let me make a couple of notes really quick. So, add in the smaller rocks to the cliffs, right? And then number 2 is the main thing is iteration. So like, yeah, add the mountain and then see. And then we can talk about it next week. If you have the whole space filled up, then we can talk about, I would love to talk to you about like the composition, and then we can see how we iterate on that. Right? Yeah, awesome stuff, McFal. Thank you so much. Let's keep it on moving. What I can say, and can't wait to see the end result. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Got a question from Slate as well. Zayad is saying, "Oh, hi Zayad. Can we start again?" No. Oh my god, we've been going for so long as well. No, we can't start again. I'm sorry. Just reverse time. Cool. We might not be able to get through like all the people today, honestly. It's already pretty late. So we'll try to do our best. But I do believe that we have some people in the chat here that still are waiting for some feedback, right? So I know that Route 1 was here. Moonlight was here as well. We'll give both of you priority too. Then we're gonna try to make some foliage to see how that goes. Oh no, make some foliage. I mean, it's up to you, but You don't have to, you know? Well, it's just so annoying. Cool. I want to try it. Yeah, but like from like, okay, so if we take a step back and from like a general, like a genuine like portfolio advice or like skill improvement advice, right? It is probably best to do that in the next project. Because at a certain point, like if you want to learn a new skill, it is probably better to do that in a separate project that is built around that skill rather than keep trying to learn a bunch of new stuff, because you might get to a point where, let's say, you spend another month on foliage in this project and you might end up with a project that is not going to be done, right? So from like a strategic perspective, it might be better to just focus on the stuff that you do here, get some megascan foliage like you're doing already now, and then the next project, just do it there. That would be my advice. Yeah, dude, thank you so much for being here. So it was a pleasure to look at your work, and best of luck. How many people see you here? Still enough? You're still here, Guillaume. So, and Slate was asking a question. So, let's see. Is it fine to use pre-made textures from Adobe, like scratch painted metal, or should I create everything from scratch? No, you can reuse, like, you can use like a bunch of stuff. Like in general, the rule that I have is if you have a focal point in your scene, right? Try to make most of that yourself so that you can showcase the whole beginning, like the whole workflow from beginning to end, right? If you are then in texturing using some masks or some textures or some, I don't know, some pre-existing assets to help you with texturing, that is fine, right? Like using brushes to sculpt like something is fine. It is more about like if you want to showcase that you, let's say if you want to showcase texturing, then it is probably good to use less of that and do more of your own stuff. That's usually the way that I go about it. Yeah, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using things, right? Like it's completely fine. For example, in the project that we were just looking at from Megfile, I'm totally fine with using foliage from Megascans in that scene, because the focus of that scene is not on the foliage. It is on the rocks and the actual scene, and like the foliage is a set dressing. So use basic stuff and create unique eye-catching stuff by hand. Yeah, exactly. There's another example from today where we were looking at Big Mike's work. He was working on a sword, right? And I'm assuming, I mean, I don't know this 100%, but I'm assuming that the texture that he got from the fabric is a pre-existing texture, right? But the focus is on the sword, not on the texture. So I'm fine with that. Okay, let's have a look. We're probably gonna do 2 more, and then I might hop on off, and then I'll see where we can kind of squeeze other people in. Oh, sorry, it was not Big Mike. Dang it, who was the sword from? Jesus Christ, got a memory like a sieve. Let's see. So if you are still in here and you have not been seen, last chance, if you want to raise your hand and get seen on stream. Otherwise, I'll have to do it off stream, I think. Long Pig, that's right. Thank you, McFell. That's right. Long Pig making the long knife. Should have known. Okay. In the meantime, let's continue with Guillaume. Let's see. Questions for Tim. My workflow is very slow and I'm learning how to use Unity in the URP mode. May I have your observations about my last screenshot and the lighting specifically? So can I, first of all, I'm going to ask, why did you switch from using Unreal to Unity? Like it's totally not a shame to use like another engine, right? But I'm just curious as to the reasons why. So may I have your observations about my last screenshots and lighting specifically? Yeah. Is the normal membership just enough to get weekly critiques? Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Anyone with the normal membership can get weekly critiques. Unity because my receiver is broken and I just have my laptop. Okay. So the reason why I asked that question as well, is because sometimes it might make sense that you switch programs, right? But okay. Okay, that's even strengthening my case, your last comment. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't make sense to then switch engines because like the thing that matters is executing on the art, right? And if we keep switching programs or engines or whatever, then we have to learn like a whole new skill set. And what we are doing is we're just replacing one tool for the other tool that does the exact same thing, just different, right? So you're basically going to be spend a whole bunch of time investing into a new tool that's not going to give you any feedback, right? Or like any improvements. So basically, let's say to illustrate this a little bit, is let's say you as your skill set, right? So this is you. Your skill set is doesn't really matter, right? Unity, Max, and Painter, right? Substance Painter. Cool. If we're trying to be a more production quality artist, right? Then the best thing is to look for a thing that we're not really covering with our skill set. So let's say I don't know how to make trees, so I'm probably gonna pick up Speed Tree. Or I don't know how to sculpt, so I'm gonna do ZBrush, right? This is what we call like vertical movements or like vertical integration or whatever you want to call it, right? Because we're upping our skill set. Compared to a horizontal movement, which is basically moving from like Max to Blender or from Unreal to Unity. We're not really gaining anything, right? Unity is also a popular tool in the independent scene, and I want to be agnostic on a technical way. Yeah, but here's the thing though, like you only want to switch to a tool when you have to switch. Because, for example, you don't know if you're going to go into the independent scene at this point, right? I mean, you don't... Better way to say it is, like, you don't have a job lined up that is going to guarantee that you're going to be working in Unity, right? So trying to teach yourself a tool that is not guaranteed that you're going to have to pick it up, like, can be a waste of time. If you want to be, like, optimal about it, right? Yeah, because... Yeah, the reality of it is that you might be upskilling like in Unity, but let's say your first project is done in Unreal, right? Then it's just like, okay, now I have to pick this back up again. Yeah, exactly, Burak. Like if time is not of the essence, right? Then it doesn't matter, right? But then, I mean, I feel like time is always, it's not of the essence necessarily, right? But there is something about like giving yourself like a timeline to get in, because otherwise it is so tempting to just keep playing and keep discovering and keep playing around, and then you build up a skill set that is not really valuable, right? No, see, right? So I don't okay, see, so that's different. Guillaume is saying I'll soon work on a VR Unity project. Then the stuff that I said makes total sense. Sorry, the stuff that I said makes no sense, right? Because you're doing it with the purpose of already upskilling for that job, right? Makes total sense. Also, Burak, to just add to your comment there as well, I have never been an advocate, and I'm not saying that you direct this against me, right? But I've never been an advocate of people just saying like, oh, you need to switch because Blender is the new thing, right? I freaking love Blender, but if you are really good in Max, like it doesn't make sense that I'm going to be pushing, or like that people will be pushing you towards Blender just because it is the tool that they use, right? It is again, it's the whole question of like, okay, what is your skill set currently? If you can upskill vertically, adding like skills that you don't already know, that is good. But any horizontal movement kind of needs to be for a good reason. For example, I'll take myself as an example where I was using in the beginning I was using Maya, right? I was using that for 4 years during uni, and then after uni, oh no, wait. So in uni, I was using Max. Then I switched to Maya because for my first job, I had to switch. But then because I was doing personal work and I was thinking about commercial work as well on the side, I made a cost analysis of just being like, okay, if I need to pay for my own license now, like it doesn't make sense to do that if I just want to do occasional like on the side work. So because of that, I switched to Blender. But if the licensing was not a big deal, I would still be working in Maya, right? So that's the thing. Like, stick with what you're comfortable with, and pick a point. I think at a certain point you're gonna get to that point where like, hey, I'll try Blender, and if Blender is really that good for being free, then you can make your own decision on where you want to switch or not, right? Yeah, for me it was a license thing. Like, well, it was not necessarily about the price necessarily. It was also just more about the burden, right? Because as if you're thinking about yourself as a business, it was more about like, oh my god, I have this big expense now that I need to pay on a recurring basis, and like half of the time I'm not even using Maya. So does it even make sense? But yeah, sorry, Guillaume. Okay, so that makes sense. You're trying to upskill in Unity. You're trying to prepare yourself for like a VR project that you're gonna be working on, right? So okay, that makes sense. Um, my workflow is very slow and I'm learning how to use Unity. May I have your observation about my last screenshot and the lighting specifically? I feel like the lighting is really, really flat, right? Like we're not really getting like a lot of lighting information currently. Where I would expect it to have like a bigger influence on the whole scene. And then especially these guys, right? Like these should have like a bigger effect on like these sections as well. Obviously, still keeping in touch with the hierarchy, right? So this is going to be the brightest spot, especially around like this area. And then we can kind of go and have like, these are going to be second brightest. And then maybe we can have like little accent lights here, right? These guys. I also believe that I'll have more chances to work in an independent scene than in AAA, in Unreal. I mean, yeah, I can't say, honestly, because that depends on a lot of factors, right? So yeah, if that is what you believe, like, I mean, that makes sense. Because it depends on your ability to move, your location, your skills, like the job opportunities close by. Like there's so many factors, right, that I can't really speak to it. I feel like in general, if you have flexibility, anyone can get into AAA. But AAA is going to require a a focus that you don't necessarily have to have in let's say indie or AA, right? Screenshot you were drawing on is not the last one? Is it not? Let's see. Oh no, you're right. It is not. Did I? Oh, it is not. Sorry. Sorry. Did I get the wrong ones? Oh no, these are. Okay. Sorry about that, Guillaume. Wait, so let's see. It's literally all of them apart from that one. I think, right? Okay. Cool. Thanks for bringing that up. Just 5 screenshots. Yep. Cool. Yeah, but the same thing still stands, right? Like the global illumination, or like how affecting the light is. We're getting like a nicer fill, which is nice. But I still expect it to be more intense than it currently is. Bye, Miguel. So yeah, the thing still stands. So this is still gonna be like your first, and then you can have like these lights. You create like your second, and then you have like these lights, these small lights. But yeah, what I would have a look at is if we're gonna be looking at some references. God. Man, I just want to have like a good candle reference, you know? So that's a candle. And then we're going to be looking at some really nice Moroccan styled lights. Oh, actually, look at this. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm not really getting any good results though. It's okay. We don't need the candle. So let's see. Let's have a look at like how much light these actually cast, right? Because they're actually like way brighter than the ones that you have currently. It obviously is going to depend on the kind of light in them, but that is sort of like the vibrancy that I'm kind of expecting, right? Where, yeah, but like ignore. So right now they're on the ceiling, right? But I'm just talking about like the intensity and the vibrancy of what they bring to the scene, right? We can put them on the floor. We can have like a couple of them next to each other. I think just having that sort of like intensity and, well, not all over the place, right? So the intensity of these guys, that would be cool. We just have to be careful that we balance it out and that it doesn't become like a coloring book like this environment kind of looks like, right? Because we don't have a focus. So we want to be more precise with the way that we use our lights to draw more attention to the area that we want to see, right? So having like a couple of these lights and then having it spread out more like this, that's going to be cool to see. We might have to balance it out a little bit and just say like, hey, look, because we're going to increase the intensity, we're probably going to have less lights, you know? So scrapping like one of these lights on like each side, or maybe playing around with like, oh, there's only one lit and then the other one is unlit or whatever, right? To kind of retain that balance that we have between like all the different light sources. That is something to definitely play around with. But yeah, especially these courtyards, you know, like I always feel that they're like super vibrant, super colorful. You have like all the beautiful ornaments and like all the sides, so we kind of have to bring that like, not intensity, I think intensity is like the wrong word, but like at least the vibrancy of it, right? Because I don't want it to be like super intense so that we don't feel like it's cozy, right? Because we kind of want to retain that. But yeah, an intensity that still feels like it's cozy. Yeah, potentially gamma. Yeah. I mean, gamma has this like yeah. It kind of washes out like the whole color spectrum, right? Like, I don't know what the best word to describe it is, but yeah, it's not intensity. I don't think it's gamma either. I don't know. Cool. But yeah, that's the first thing that I would look at. Let's see. Maybe it's the mix of them. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I feel like whenever this is me, right? This is my experience. Whenever I touch like a gamma slider, I touch it a little bit and it's like, ooh, and then I just delete it again. Dang, still going strong. Yeah. This is gonna be the last one for tonight because yeah, getting close to freaking midnight over here. But the same thing in these scenes as well, right? Like if we just like increase like the intensity of these guys just slightly. And then make sure that we have, because the beauty of these lights is that they cast these like really beautiful shadows, right? So maybe you're looking into light functions. I don't know what the equivalent of that is in Unity. I have no clue, but that could be something really good to look into. I don't know if you're using that here or if it's actually just a geometry casting the shadows, but that would be something interesting to look at. It's going to give you more control over the shadows. Unity, it is a totally different way to manage the light. Yeah, but I bet you that there's still a way to like infuse fake lights. Even with baking a light map, right? Like there must still be. Well, I guess with baking a light map, you can just use geometry shadows, right? Because it's going to be encoded into textures anyway. Unity used to work the same. Unreal used to work the same way as well. So you would have to bake like light maps and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah, that would be something to look into where you get like these really nice shadows, right? Like these kind of nice, like soft shadows. That is going to really make the scene. Oh, yeah, cookie lights. Yeah, exactly. So for the lantern, I use the cookie lights. Okay, so this is not coming from the geometry, that's cookie lights. Cool. If we're using that, it might be worth looking into making them softer, right? Because if you look at any light source, where is my browser? Okay, let's see if we can find like a quick picture. Come on, give me some soft shadows. Let's go. I mean, this is probably the worst example out there, but what is from a slide deck? Come on, man. Okay. We can actually use this example again, right? What is going to happen with shadows is that in the beginning they're going to be really sharp, but the further they move away from the object, they're going to become really soft, right? That is something to look into here as well. So if you have a texture that is driving it, making sure that like the further it goes away from the object, the softer it becomes. That is gonna help like sell the realistic feel. Plus, also what you can do is then you can extend the radius without it becoming like really contrasty with the rest of the environment, right? Because if we're going to increase the intensity, let's say this is the radius of the light, then we kind of want it to have like our shadows here, and then really soft ones here. So at a certain point, they're just going to be blending together with like the other soft ones, which is going to look really nice, I think. So yeah. Want to have softer shadows on those cookie lights. That's going to help a lot as well. Let's see. Still working on the composition props, and I would like to use a hand-painted style for this project. Do you have any advice from the last documentation I shared? Are we talking about this stuff here? Like to use a hand-painted style for this project. Do you have any advices from the last documentations? Okay, so from here. If you're gonna go for hand painting, documentation for the trim sheet, three different trim sheets. So if you're gonna go for a hand-painted style, if you are talking about like very traditional hand painting, you honestly don't even need to do sculpting. You can just paint that all in, right? It's going to be a lot of Photoshop work, but I mean, it's going to be pretty fun. Like having to do all this stuff, like you can just make it in Photoshop and then just tile it the way that you want it to. You're basically making like trim sheets, but like in a very old school way, right? So that's going to be fun. But yeah, the cool thing about working with something like this in a hand-painted style is that you can literally just like paint your trim sheet. You can get it done like really quickly in Photoshop and then already start using it and see where the flaws are going to be, right? And then you can kind of start like going crazy if you're talking about like traditional hand-painted, right? And then for some of the tileable materials made in Designer, you can then just do that in Designer and kind of match the two things, right? But let's see. So the props to sculpt and to hand paint, teapot, lanterns. Yeah. So yeah. So it might look like you're going for like a combination potentially, right? Where you're still going to be doing like the baked workflow and do like all the stereotypical 3D stuff, and then yeah, so this is the thing, right? Like you can do both. So you can do the thing that you wanted to do where you have your stereotypical 3D workflow and then you texture them in a way that is like made for more hand painted stuff. That can work. Or you can just go full hand painted and actually have like all the textures, like all the details is going to come from the texture and you can hand paint the whole thing. It just depends on what you think is going to give the better result and like what you want to go for, right? But both are valid. So for example, let me see. If we go and look at Jasmine's work, right? This is what this is what is like more the traditional work, right? So this is 3D base, and then on top of it you have like hand painted or like close to hand painted textures, right? Like a lot of love in the textures, all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you go to the older work, this is more just like, hey, look, I'm just gonna hand paint the whole thing, and I'm not gonna do any 3D work as a start, right? So those are two different workflows that you can use. It just depends on what kind of style that you want to go for. So yeah. Cool. I hope that was helpful, but like, let's see. Did we skip anything? 3 different dim sheets. Yeah, that can work. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. This would potentially, this would just be like a material, right? Not a trim sheet. I mean, you could do. I like to do it this way. So this is going to be a titleable, and then all of this stuff, right? So all these little things, they're going to come together on one single trim sheet, right? And then these guys are always going to be titleables. The reason why I love doing this is because it separates all the different surfaces out more, and we have to do less work in UVing or working around all the different restrictions, right? Because let's say, this is also valid, by the way, let's say we do this whole thing on a singular trim sheet, right? So we have the top trim here and the titleable underneath it. That works, but then if we want to have a bigger surface, let's say the pool here, what we need to do is we can only tile so much horizontally, so that we need to add multiple cuts to have multiple ways of tiling that, right? Which is still valid, but I prefer to do it in a way where I can just slap the tileable on it and I'm good, especially for bigger surfaces, if that makes sense. So separating it out where you clearly have like your trims and then you clearly have your tileables, because it makes the whole thing more flexible, in my opinion. And then let's see. So you have a trim sheet here, a tileable here. Yeah, I guess because this is such a large surface. Oh, actually, what I would do, we're not going to make this a tileable. This is going to be a trim, and this is going to be a tileable. Yeah, the optimization. So I feel like the optimization is, it might sound like we're being really unoptimized, right? Because now we have, instead of 3 textures, we actually have, we have 1 trim, right? For like all the trim sheets. And then 1, 2, 3 tileables. So we went, I mean, it's not a big difference, but we went from like 3 trim sheets to 1 trim and 3 tileables. But the difference here is, the main difference here is that we are going to be more optimized with our geometry in the first place, and this is more flexible for the future, like the top workflow. Because it's not restrictive. Let's say we want to build like a big surface and we need to tile this on here, then we need to add like a lot of geometry on it, right? Because let's say we have a big space and we want to use like this tileable on it, then we can just slap the tileable on it and we're done. If we want to do the same thing with this trim sheet, then we are, again, going to have to cut like a lot of separations in it to make that work. I mean, yeah, it's just a way that I prefer to work, honestly. How about decals for the yellow lines between near the fountain? How can the tileable work? I think Guillaume is already explaining it. I would create a specific mesh or a specific loop and straighten it in the UVs. Exactly like that. So this is the power of trim sheets, right? Like a trim sheet is basically just laying out like a bunch of different sections, right? But then with your UV, you can basically just straighten anything on these lines and you can make it into any shape you want, right? So this is going to be geometry. And then you just map it onto this straight stuff, and it's just going to work. And the benefit of that is let's say, I don't like that trim. Okay, I can just move it like one thing down, and I have a different trim that is now on this spot. So it becomes really flexible where you can just like shift stuff around. uploading trim sheets now, and I'm using it in my scene. It needs really good planning. Yeah, yeah, but they're so versatile though. I'm gonna show you as a last example here. Yeah, the videos from Polygon Academy are really good when it comes to trim sheets work. Let me see. Where is my project? It's a very good tool with Blender and UV Toolkit. Tim showed me this last project with the mosaic ornaments. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that tool is just a lifesaver where you can just like straighten any edge and you can just map it on whatever you want. It's so useful. But just to showcase like the power of like trim sheets and tidables and all that kind of stuff. So this is a scene that I was working on, right? Most of you have seen this already. But zoom out a little bit. The whole scene is just like it's made with tidables and trim sheets, right? So like all this stuff that you see, that is all just tidables and trim sheets. There's nothing unique in this scene. And obviously it's rough in like a couple of edges because I didn't have time to detail it, but like it's so flexible. And then you can literally use that in so many ways, right? I feel like that's why I love the presentation for like the mid-poly workflow where they have like all the decals and little strips and you can see it so clearly. But yeah. Yeah, some really cool trim sheets. Okay, Guillaume. Thank you so much for sharing your work. Best of luck with yeah, best of luck with the project. I mean, switching engines is always a pain, but if you're doing it for the VR project, best of luck. Maybe reach out to some people that work there already. Maybe they can help you with certain things. I don't know how big they are or how many artists they have. Maybe they'd be willing to help you on board a little bit as well. Could be cool. But yeah, best of luck and yeah, good luck with the project as well, man. Good luck. Switching an engine is always daunting. Oh, I mean, I've had to do it for every project, and most of it is fine. But like, especially for personal work, because you have to do all of it, right? You have to do the modeling, the presentation, the lighting, all that kind of stuff. It just becomes such a pain because you have to learn everything from scratch again. Ugh. Oh, dude. Fucking light maps. Like, I am never gonna go to light map baking. I will never use that for any personal scene. Like, I just don't care. Like, I think I had to do it once. And oh my god. I was like, no, I'm never doing this again. But also, like, yeah. When I started, like, we literally had to wait for like a single render in max for like 24 hours, you know? So from that point, I was already like, man, I want to have real-time stuff. That sounds like the dream. And now we just have that running in Unreal Engine when you open it. It's fucking ridiculous. It is crazy. But yeah, that's gonna do it for tonight. So I'm knackered. And I need to go to sleep, take a shower, get up, go to work tomorrow. Yeah, switching from Corona or V-Ray to Unreal is life-saving. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was baking in I was rendering in Mental Ray. I didn't even get time to like try all the V-Ray stuff. That was like the advanced stuff at that time. I learned a lot today. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you so much for being here. It was fun to have you. Always lovely. And thank you also for the community here, which is helpful. Yeah, I feel like Burak was like really, really helpful. So thank you so much for being here. That's why Unreal is so famous, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, Unity and Unreal, right? Like both just like real-time engines where you can just like plop stuff in and it's like you can kind of assemble something and like have it like running pretty good, because Unity has their own dynamic lighting situation as well, right? Obviously Unity has been in the news for not so much great stuff like in the past couple of years, but Yeah. I'm not gonna miss the stream anymore, thanks. Gonna watch the other streams too. Oh my god, there's so many of them. Don't stay up too long though. Yeah. Thank you also so much for the question, Justine, as well. I hope to see you back next week. Feel free to ask any questions in the next stream. I think the next stream is gonna be fun. I'm gonna showcase like some of my old stuff. I'm gonna see if I can find some time to dig through like some of my older, messier projects and show like all the stuff that I failed at. That's gonna be fun. But yeah, thanks all so much for being here. I'll post like all the overpaints and all that kind of stuff on the Discord community, and I'll see if I can get through some of the other pieces potentially tomorrow or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Have a great evening, all. Bye-bye. Oh, Burak is asking, can we see your first personal or first professional project? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to show it all next week. It's going to be fun. See you.